My new girlfriend is demanding that I delete all photos of my ex-girlfriend right away, saying that if I don't, then this means I'm not truly in love with her and that I'm still not over my ex yet. But for me, deleting 5 years of a relationship is just not that easy. So my new girlfriend is really putting me in a bind where I just don't know what to do. Here's what's currently going on. Okay, to start things off, I'm a 21-year-old male, and I broke up with my ex-girlfriend after about 5 years of being in a relationship. But if I'm being honest, I wanted to end it for almost a whole year beforehand, but I was really scared about how our families and friends would take it. But you know what? I finally did the right decision in early December and then gave myself some time to be single before I started dating again. Well, a month ago, I started again and I quickly found my current girlfriend. We've been together for just about 2 weeks now and it's going great so far. But unfortunately, there's one major problem. She seriously wants me to delete all photos of my ex-girlfriend, and I mean every single one of them. Now, of course, I have some photos that I probably should delete, and we're talking stuff of like, oh, it's just photos of her face and stuff like that. But there's also photos of us at a party with friends, or us on a holiday where I took pictures with her and not alone, and also a lot of pictures of her with my now dead cat that was really important to me, as well as many other photos that are kind of in this like vein of thought. It's moments in my life from the past 5 years that I really don't want to delete and just forget about. To me, I feel like if I delete everything, I will literally delete more than 4 years of my life, which in some cases was like the most important years in everybody's lives. Now, she did tell me that she had like deleted all photos from her 2 previous relationships as well, where one of them lasted 4 years, which is like basically as long as me and my ex-girlfriend. She says that me not deleting them means that I'm still not over her and all this other stuff. So it really puts me in a bind. Like, I really don't know if I would be the jerk if I told her I'm not gonna do it, because at this point I'm kind of torn and I just don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, this is completely unreasonable, dude. Like, there's no way I would be okay with this. Like, yes, did your ex-girlfriend and you break up and like maybe it just didn't work? Sure. Like, this is life and that absolutely happens. But for your new girlfriend to be like, you need to erase all existence of her right now, that to me feels incredibly entitled. And also, you're deleting a part of your past. Like, you seriously spent probably most of high school and into college spending time with this other girl and her family. You guys spent like 5 years together, dude. That's a long time together. And sure, the relationship didn't work out, but I'm sure you would want to still be like, I don't know, cordial with each other. You don't need to like drop a nuke on every single photo ever just because she's in it. Especially group photos. Like, what's the problem there, man? There's literally no issue in my opinion. It really should be the case where it's like, okay, yeah, my girlfriend's in the photo, but so is like 15 other people. I'm not gonna delete that and forget about that memory. Or like vacation photos, or like, I don't know, special events in your life. Because guess what? Your girlfriend was probably there at the time when you were together. So in my opinion, even if your like new girlfriend deleted photos from her previous relationship, I personally just don't think that's a reasonable thing to ask of you at this point. Like, you guys have only been together for 2 weeks. That is a lot to ask. So in my opinion, this is all just really irrational and a little too quick for me. So I don't think you should do it at all. If you like Am I the Jerk and what we're doing over here, please check out Am I the Genius. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Just click and go ahead and subscribe to them. And also, if you have your own stories you want to submit, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you want to submit your own stories. We're reading them all the time and we're picking out the best ones, so trust me, we would love to hear what you have to say. Today, my boyfriend left me at the grocery store and refuses to apologize, as he says he was trying to avoid conflict with me at the store, but honestly, I'm just not buying it. And at this point, I'm expecting an apology, and I don't know if I'm asking too much out of him. Here's what's going on. Okay, so as the title suggests, my boyfriend just straight up left me at the grocery store today. We were walking through the store, and I suddenly remembered a specific kind of popsicle that I wanted, and I told him we should go to the ice cream aisle stat. Well, he immediately got annoyed with me and was like, look around. We're in this aisle for a reason. We can't just be going out of our way to get ice cream. I then told him there's no harm in going one aisle over and coming back for whatever we need next. But he then goes, look where we are right now. Do you realize why we're here? Yeah, we have things we need to get first, and I won't just waste time by going to popsicles first and then coming back to this aisle. Now, he wasn't even saying we couldn't get the ice cream, but that he really didn't like the order I was suggesting in terms of when to get it during the trip. I then told him that I didn't even realize that there were like things in that aisle that we needed. I then lightly pushed back and just said, oh yeah, it is such a big deal for us to walk an extra aisle while at the grocery store. And at that point, he said he wasn't going to argue with me, and he said he was leaving and just started walking home. And I'm not gonna lie, that really hurt my feelings. When I got home, I told him I wanted to apologize, and he just got angry with me and said that I should have realized that him leaving to avoid an argument was him trying to prevent conflict in our relationship. And you know what? We have been fighting a lot about really stupid stuff. He said that I didn't see what the relationship needed. did, and that was for him to leave me at the store alone to avoid any kind of bigger disagreement. So seriously, am I really overreacting for wanting an apology, or is he right? And if a couple is disagreeing in public, one person should leave to avoid a fight. What should I do here? Okay, in my opinion, I don't know why you're staying with someone who just blatantly doesn't like you. I don't know, it just seems weird to me. Like, this seems like it just really is a situation where your boyfriend just can't stand being around you. Cause dude, I'm just not buying what he's saying. It just doesn't make sense to me. I understand not wanting to start an argument, but you weren't arguing with him. From the sounds of it, it kind of seems like you were just having some fun. You're like, oh, we need to get these popsicles right now. Let's go get it. It's like you're not trying to start some kind of conflict. Like, if anybody in this situation is overreacting, it's your boyfriend. Is he really trying to be rigid about what aisle you're going to in the grocery store? Like, come on, dude, get a life. It's not that serious. Like, go get the ice cream pops. Like, who cares? It's also like a really convenient way of him shifting the blame by being like, oh, I was just walking home to avoid conflict. I didn't want to have another disagreement with you. And it's like, dude, it is not that serious. We're talking about ice cream right now, bro. It's one aisle over. I mean, crap, I'll go get it myself and bring it back. Like, what's the problem here? So no, I would also want an apology. Like, if I had a girlfriend who walked home because it's like, oh my God, I'm sorry that I asked for ice cream. I was just trying to have fun with you. Like, holy crap. Like, I would really be expecting some kind of apology for the way she acted and be like, dude, you gotta like chill out. So no, you're not the jerk. Your boyfriend is being very weird and petty and just super passive aggressive. And in my opinion, you can find someone way better than this. Am I the jerk for not defending my girlfriend when my friends kicked her out of our group project for not doing her part? Because now that it's all said and done, she is really pissed off at me, and I'm not sure if I made a mistake by doing nothing or if I should have said more to keep her in the group. Here's what happened. Okay, it's important to start off by saying that everyone's 16 years old and we're all just a bunch of school students. Our grade recently got a group project and it's really important for internals. And there's also a maximum of 4 people allowed in each group. The teacher already mentioned in the start that if a particular member doesn't do his or her part and doesn't really contribute, then the group can kick that lazy member out. And almost everyone made a 4-person group. My group included me, my girlfriend, and 2 of my best friends. But I will say, my best friends are not friends with my girlfriend though. We then divided the task the next day. My girlfriend was given the job to print the images that we all needed. And we did this because she's the only one amongst us who has a printer. She was meant to bear the expenses for like any ink she was going to use, but it was also the easiest job and she agreed to do it. Everyone did their work on time, but she kept delaying her part. And in fact, upon her request, she was given 2 more days than the original deadline that she was given just to get it done. However, she didn't pick up anyone's call nor even reply to messages, even on the day of that she was meant to submit her work. So, feeling tired and frustrated, one of my friends got all the images printed from outside. Then he later announced on the group chat that we as boys will divide the printing expenses and she needs to be kicked out. And you know what? My other friend instantly agreed. I was frustrated too and embarrassed as well because I'm the one who asked my friends to include her in the group. And honestly, everything was going smoothly, but she alone created chaos. So I didn't defend her staying, but also didn't explicitly say that she needs to be kicked out. I stayed kind of neutral and I told them to do what they think is fair. I'll support the indecision no matter what it might be. So she eventually got kicked out. And later it led to a private fight between me and her. Her main complaint is that, well, why didn't you support me? But my main argument is that, hey, she's the reason for whatever happened. She has no valid reason for not doing her work in the given time. Even when she was given 2 more days, she didn't even reply almost the entire day. She said that she had a headache, which I honestly think is just a complete excuse. Plus, she's been procrastinating this for several days and could have at least told us if she really had a headache. So she's still very upset, but I honestly think that what my friends did was completely justified. And now she has to make a separate project for her all by herself. She asked me to help out, but I told her that I already worked for my project, and now I will not be able to help her much for hers. I will do the research stuff. I mean, that's like 25% of the work, but she's still very mad at me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I do kind of think you're the jerk, but not for any obvious reasons. Like, yeah, your girlfriend absolutely should have stepped up and done her job. She had the easiest job in the group. It would have been very easy to be like, okay, let me get these taken care of and print it off and we're all good to go. But in my opinion, I think it would have been way better to like actually come to her defense and at least try to help her save face. Because seriously, she could have just stayed attached to the grade of the project you guys were working on. And in my opinion, by doing nothing and being like, well, I guess she just has to face her consequences. Like, that really really is going to jeopardize your relationship, and it's like, I don't know, I would have said something. I would have been like, no, don't kick her out. I can figure this out. Let's just keep her in there and give her another chance. Or something along those lines. Like, in my opinion, staying neutral is you saying like, yeah, go ahead and kick her out. Because you know she's gonna get kicked out. Like, I don't know, I would have tried to stop it at least. Or even gone to my girlfriend and been like, hey, they want to kick you out of the group and I'm sticking my neck out on the line to keep you in it. You gotta step it up and do more. Like, what are you doing? But instead, it kind of seems like you just washed your hands of it and said, well, whatever happens, happens. And that, in my opinion, is the jerk move. Like, I'm not saying that what she did is right, but also you could have stopped this. So in my opinion, I do think the original poster is a jerk here. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Leave a comment down below. I want to hear what you have to say. Do you think the original poster was right to do nothing and just let nature take its course? Or do you think they should have stepped in, like I think they should have, and done something to make it so her girlfriend's not kicked out and having to do this all on her own? Leave a comment. I would really love to hear what you have to say. Did I overreact by requesting a protective order and pressing charges against my kid's bully? Because my son's been mistreated by this kid for far too long and I simply have had enough. But now the mom of this bully is starting to fight back, as she's trying to claim that my son was the aggressor in these situations when that is definitely not the truth, putting me and my family in a weird situation because I now just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my 10-year-old has had an issue with another kid who I will call Todd for a couple of years now. A lot of these issues really started as Todd was making comments to my son and his friends, but recently he's become very bold. In fact, my son got a video of this little punk flipping him and his friends off and cussing at them too. So I just told my son to ignore him and he'll eventually get bored if he doesn't react. Well, my son was riding his bike to a friend's house when Todd and his friends walked from the street to the sidewalk to approach him. Todd then asked to see my son's phone so he could call his mom, even though later he told police that he wanted to delete the video of him cussing. And naturally, my son said no. The kid kept bugging him and eventually grabbed his phone, but my son then slapped his hand away and bumped the kid with his bike. Well, apparently that's when everything just completely broke loose. My son then got pushed and hit to where he ended up with a bloody nose. Now, I was at work when everything happened, so once my husband told me, I asked that we call the cops to get things handled. I more so wanted the kid to see bullying others have consequences and hoped it would finally set him straight. Since the bullying had increased, I also wanted to pursue a protective order, and my husband said to press charges. Well, we eventually get approved for the protective order, which is then upheld by the school. So Todd isn't allowed in the same classes as my son. And honestly, you might think this is problem solved, but it definitely wasn't. Because the mom decides she wants to fight the protective order because apparently, oh, my son can't even go to school now. But I literally confirmed with the principal that this kid's allowed to go to school, but his parents are choosing to keep him out. The mom has also gotten our neighbor and the kids involved to show that my son was the initial aggressor. I definitely don't regret pursuing a protective order, but now I'm wondering if pressing charges are excessive. I still feel like I should because numerous kids are being picked on and the parents aren't doing anything about it. I want them to all learn a lesson and hope the inconvenience of taking him to community service events will make them actually parent their kid. So seriously, am I overreacting here? Because I don't know what else to do. Okay, the entire reason why I picked this story is because honestly, I was someone who was horribly bullied as a kid. I was picked on mercilessly, I was beat up at school and after school, I was bothered while I was riding my bike and just trying to visit friends. I was mistreated so bad, it was a nightmare. Every single day was a nightmare, it never got easier, and honestly, you felt like you had nowhere safe to go. So on behalf of every bullied kid ever, I just want to say to the original poster, thank you so much for doing all of this. I know it might seem like you did the wrong thing by this mom being upset and all these other people being like, your son's the problem. But you not only know the truth, but you also have evidence of this kid literally bothering your son before. So in my opinion, I think you did the right thing. Having a protective order and pressing charges is not unusual in my opinion. And this is just me speaking from personal experience. Seriously, childhood bullies are some of the nastiest, meanest people you could possibly meet. And it all comes back to the crappy parents that raise them. Or in this case, just don't even raise them, period. They let their kids run loose in the neighborhood, do whatever they want, cause any kind of mischief or property damage, and then suddenly it's everybody else's fault except for theirs. I kind of wish my parents did something like this when I was a kid because good lord, the mistreatment was just completely unacceptable and the nightmares you get after the fact are just awful. So in my personal opinion, I think you did the right thing. I don't think you're overreacting. I think stuff like this absolutely needs to be taken seriously, and these kids need to learn that you can't treat people like this because this problem starts with the parents and it's only projected through the kids. And I really think something needs to be done sooner than later before things get way worse than this. My male friend and former colleague has been messaging me nonstop pretty much daily ever since I told him I don't want to be in a relationship with him, as this guy is constantly giving me updates about his life and just altogether being really obnoxious about staying in touch with me. And I'm now in a situation where I really feel like I need to block this guy because I really just don't know what else to do to tell him that I'm not interested in him. Here's basically how it all started. I'm a 30-year-old female and I know this one guy from seasonal work trips. We work for the same company and ended up sharing a few trips together. He is genuinely a good and intelligent person and we had a lot in common from the start. We also had mutual friends, including one of my closest friends, so naturally we would hear updates about each other or end up in the same groups often. At first, I honestly just saw him as a good friend. Most of our conversations were just reacting to the same posts or talking about politics, hiking, random topics, etc., and I never intentionally gave mixed signals or treated him as anything more than a friend. Over time, though, I started getting the feeling that he might be interested in something more. There were little hints here and there, suggesting trips together, wanting to hang out more one-on-one, stuff like that. And since we're both into hiking, it didn't really seem that weird at first. At one point, we ended up traveling alone because some friends canceled, but nothing inappropriate happened. During that period, I also openly talked about how I'm not really a relationship person. I said I don't want marriage or children, and generally I don't see myself in relationships long term. It came up naturally in conversation, and I thought that would probably make things clear. Sometime later, we randomly met again on another hike. We chatted with other people and said goodbye because we had separate plans the next day, and that same night he messaged me asking if we could go out sometime, not as friends, but as something more. And honestly, I had been expecting it because of the hints in previous messages, and by then I had already started distancing myself a little by replying less and taking longer to answer, so I politely rejected him and told him I only saw him as a friend and I wasn't interested in relationships. He took it really well and basically said it was okay and that he was cool about it. Well, the problem is that after that, something changed for me emotionally. I know this might sound unfair, but I just lost any interest in him and in the friendship altogether. I think part of me felt weird about the fact that I had shared things with him in a very safe friendship kind of way, while he had apparently been developing feelings in the background. Naturally, we drifted apart after I changed companies and routes, but even now, almost every interaction is initiated by him. At first, I would respond with short replies and then mostly reactions, but he still acts like nothing changed. Maybe for him, it genuinely didn't. I mean, he once mentioned that he had been rejected before and stayed friends with that person too, so maybe this is just normal for him. But for me, it feels completely different now. The constant updates and messages honestly start to become irritating. He replies to almost every single story that I post. He comments on nearly everything, sends random updates constantly, and somehow always seems to be the first person reacting to whatever I post or share. And even now, he still suggests like group hikes or trips as well. I don't want to sound delusional and assume he's secretly obsessed with me or anything like that, but there is definitely a difference between someone casually staying friends and someone maintaining constant presence in your DMs all the time. I've already tried naturally distancing myself, but it hasn't really changed anything. I don't want to be cruel or rude because he genuinely is a decent person, but I also don't know how to politely tell someone that I'm not interested in constant daily communication or random like too much information updates anymore without sounding like a jerk. So seriously, what should I do? Okay, honestly, I think you're being way too nice here. This guy clearly still has some kind of like thing for you and he's just not getting the hint. You've let him down slowly and you've been very nice about it. So I think going on like the more offensive and being like, dude, I'm not interested in you, please leave me alone, or at least something along those lines would hopefully like get the picture across a little bit better. Because seriously, the way he's acting is super annoying. Like I would be very frustrated with this if I was like, dude, I don't want to be in a relationship with you. And here's the thing, like his daily updates is his way of being like, I'm still around, I'm still an option if you change your mind. And that's just weird, man. So you can either do this one of two ways. You can either continue to like ignore him and be like, okay, I have faded out of your life, leave me alone. Or you can just straight up tell him, dude, I'm not interested and I'm removing you because you're bothering me. Like you really don't have to keep him like on your social media or in your phone if you don't want to. You can just delete him and like block him and move on from there. You don't owe this guy anything. You're not interested in him. So it's like, okay, just move along, because this guy's clearly still trying to be in the mix for something that you are not interested in. And in my opinion, you have no obligation to try and like spare his feelings, regardless of how good of a guy you think he might be. Today, I realized that I have a work crush on a guy that I just started working with, which is really awful considering the 5-year relationship I already have with my boyfriend, because this is now putting me in a really weird position where I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's currently going on. I'm a 27-year-old female and I'm in a 5-year relationship with my boyfriend who I genuinely love. He's my best friend. He's my safe place. The person who always has been there for me when life gets hard. We talk about marriage, kids, future trips, all of it. We barely ever fight. Like, we have built amazing communication and understanding towards each other with time. And on paper, nothing is ever wrong. But over the last year or so, the spark and attraction has slowly faded. We both face difficult situations in our respective career. Evenings are usually just decompressing. Weekends are full of errands and just resting. And overall, things just feel very routine. I still feel emotionally connected to him, but not necessarily excited in the same way anymore. But now there's this guy that I see through work maybe like once a week. He works at a different company in a professional setting. Now, I will say nothing inappropriate has ever happened at all. We barely even flirt. It's mostly just occasional jokes and conversations or like eye contact, but there's definitely tension and chemistry there, and I can feel it every single time we interact. He's really smart. He's very handsome. He compliments my work a lot, and apparently even my coworkers notice that he seems into me, and even sometimes like tease me after the meetings when I got complimented. I catch myself looking forward to meetings with him and sometimes leaving with a stupid little smile afterwards, which makes me feel so guilty because I have literally never had a crush like this while also being in a relationship. Those thoughts have been there for the last 2 months, and they started to feel more intense over the last 2 weeks or so. Now, here's the real thing about it. I don't actually know this guy that well. It's important to know that this is really just mostly about fantasy, chemistry, and novelty. I'm not planning to act on anything, but the fact that I'm daydreaming about someone else at all is making me question everything. Is this just what happens in long-term relationships sometimes? Like getting attached to the feeling of excitement and being desired again? Or is this a sign that something deeper is missing in my relationship? Because right now I honestly feel a little bit lost and I just don't know what to do. Okay, someone said it best way before I even could, because this is my personal opinion. The grass is always greener where you water it. And it sounds like this relationship that you're in is basically like drying up. I'm not saying that like you need to dump your boyfriend, like holy crap, that's not at all what I'm saying. But maybe it's time to like bring some spark back into your relationship, like holy crap. And don't get me wrong, like I think it's completely normal to be like, oh, that lady's pretty. And it's like, cool, we work together and she's really like complimenting me. But holy crap, that is exactly where it ends, man. You don't go any further about it. I don't know, for me, I would want to stay loyal to my relationship and not even flirt with the danger of like possibly cheating, because it starts with feeling that way about them, but then it leads to like, oh yeah, maybe I'll hang out with them after work or something like that. And you know how you feel about them, so it's just not safe at all. So yeah, if you love your boyfriend, then I would look the other direction straight at him and be like, I'm gonna make this work. We're gonna figure this out and we're gonna have the best relationship ever. Because otherwise, this becomes a slippery slope where things can happen in a way that you probably don't want to like ruin for you and your boyfriend. And I think it's better to do that now before things get really out of hand. My entitled neighbors sent their relatives to my house to try and use my pool without my consent, resulting in all of us going to court, with my neighbor and their family being guilty of a second-degree trespassing charge. Here's what happened. Okay, so the front of my driveway has a sign that reads private property, no trespassing as you pull into the driveway. I have a fence up around my pool to keep out unwanted animals and intruders, with the only way in being a key that you need to unlock the gate. I have security cameras on certain places of the house pointing to the pool. So with that information out of the way, last summer while I was away, my phone alerted me. It basically said that my security cameras had caught something, and so I checked to see the live footage, and it was 3 teenagers that were in their early teens and 1 adult trying to climb the fence to my pool. I have a tarp over my pool at all times, which can only be removed by a switch in my house, and you would think that they would see the tarp and then just leave. Well, I immediately called the police and they told me that they would take care of it. The 4 didn't even attempt to leave, and they just kept trying to climb the fence, and I then watched as the 4 of them were arrested. The day I get home, my neighbor, who must have been watching from my car, storms over and starts screaming at me. My sister and her kids are gonna have a criminal record now because of you. But I looked at them and I said, oh, so that's who my cameras detected. You should know my sign in front of my house says private property and no trespassing. She then says that she'll see me in court when their court date comes up. The sister of the neighbor pleaded in court it was a hot summer day and they wanted to cool down, so her sister insisted that they go use my pool, but to ignore the sign sign that said private property because her sister and I are good friends. But my neighbor and I are not good friends. I explained to the judge that I did not give consent for my neighbor to use my pool while I was gone. The judge saw all the evidence needed, especially the sign in my driveway saying no trespassing, and found the neighbor and her sister guilty of second-degree trespassing, which in my state carries the punishment of a $200 fine and 20 days in jail. The judge found the two nephews and niece guilty as well. My lawyers also requested a restraining order, which was also granted. The teen lawyer tried to explain that the teens didn't know about the sign in my driveway, but the judge dismissed that because they willingly listened to their mother and aunt in believing that it was okay to trespass, which is most definitely not my problem. Okay, I love this so much because my God, that is so dangerous. Like, you have so many things set up to be like, hey, don't go on my property while I'm not there. This is private property, there's a locked door, and I have my pool covered. Literally, there are so many things that show that, hey, this is not something you want to mess with. You shouldn't be here and this is not okay. And the fact that your neighbor literally was like, oh, it's okay, we're friends. It's like, dude, no, we're not. If you were my friend, you would not be telling them to break the law and trespass onto my property. So good for you for shutting this down because honestly, this could have been so much worse if somebody got hurt. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for asking my husband to go low contact with his college ex after he literally called me by her name twice in a row? Here's what's going on. I'm a 27-year-old female and I've been married to my husband for almost a year. We had known each other and were good friends for a year and a half before finally tying the knot. We decided to start seeing each other after knowing each other for almost a year. During our friendship and our relationship, even during the short span that we have been married, I knew about his past and I was always open about mine. I am someone who tries her absolute best in a relationship and gives a guy plenty of chances, but once it's done, and I never look back. But my husband had experiences in the past when he either bounced back to one of his exes for a short booty call situation or just a flirtationship. Now, I had no reason to doubt my husband's loyalty. However, my trust in him dwindled a bit when he was entertaining his mother-in-law about complaints about me in the beginning of our marriage. She would rant about me, said things like, I'm not happy with your marriage and all this other stuff, and he wouldn't stand up for me, at least in the very beginning. However, we worked through it and moved past it. It caused me a lot of pain that he would do that, but I set my boundary in that respect, and he learned not to toe his mother-in-law's line where I was concerned. Fast forward to a few months in, and my husband would bring up his ex every time he watched his favorite sport because his ex's father worked for our country's sports team. So he would bring up her father a lot. All the times he hung out with the players, all the trips that he went with them, all the autograph stuff that he has, their beautiful house, their successful business, etc. He would always say, oh, Lily's father's this and Lily's father's that. And for the sake of the story, the name of the ex is gonna be Lily. As he is super passionate about that sport, I would get slightly bothered to hear her name so many times every time he passionately talked about that sport, which by the way was a lot. Well, I eventually let him know. He defended himself first that he admired her father and not her, but later understood and just kind of stopped talking about him. Well, fast forward to a month later, and she invited us to a game of that sport in premium seats, which she could arrange because of her father's position. Well, fast forward and we were in the car. It was my husband, his ex, me, and another friend of the ex. We were on the way to the stadium where we were set to meet their other friends when my husband accidentally calls me by his ex's name. I didn't acknowledge it then, even though it was quite embarrassing in that moment because a silence followed when he said that. And you know what? The other people in the car noticed as well, but I just brushed by it really quickly. A few weeks later, I calmly told him that what he did really bothered me. He defended himself again, saying that it was a mistake and that our names are similar, and he has a lot of trauma from college when he was dating her, when he would say her name a lot while trying to calm her down during fights. But I could not accept that explanation, and I got really angry when he kept repeating it. So we ended up fighting, we made up, and then later on, when we were still talking about the same topic calmly, he calls me by her name again. I then told him that he needs to go low contact with her at least until he's officially over the trauma from their relationship. That way he can stop accidentally calling me by her name. He understood and said that he'd honor my wishes until I get comfortable with the idea of having her as his friend. They do have common friends and had plans to play a sport together with friends and me last weekend, but she canceled last minute because of her other commitments. My husband calls her again today to make similar plans with the same group of friends before he called the other friends. He brought it up with me casually, but started getting confused when I asked for details. First he said that she called him and tried to make the plan, and later he admitted that he was the one who called her. He also tried to tell me that he called her only to coordinate because their other friend asked him to make the plan, and later he admitted to calling her before he texted the other friend about the plan. He called her on his own, no provocation. But he says it doesn't matter much because it was only about the sport, as if I'm the one overreacting. He says he didn't talk to her for over a month because I asked him not to. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation for trying to set some kind of boundary? Because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, it really is super inappropriate that your husband can call you by his ex's name multiple times. And it's like, dude, why are you still friends with your ex? Like, that's so weird. Why not kick that to the curb? And no, that sport is not a good enough reason to be like, yeah, let's still be friends. So no, you're not the jerk for trying to draw a line in the sand, because your husband's behavior, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. My job forced me to be a part of a meeting group that I really did not want to be a part of. So I maliciously complied and showed up, but instead of actually going along with what they were doing, I decided to be the biggest nuisance on planet Earth, pointing out every single problem I could possibly spot and frustrating these people to no end, resulting in me getting kicked out of this group. Here's what happened. So when I was working IT at the college, it had been decided that the world would be a better place if two of our campuses were merged into one. They were only a mile apart and the new site was 3 miles away, so there wasn't a big location issue. Sure, some people had a harder commute, but some got an easier commute. It's kind of equitable when you think about it. To make the new build a rousing success, there would be consultations and people would be consulted and everyone would be listened to. Yeah, you know that didn't happen without me telling you, don't you? Each department was to send a representative to the new build consultation group, and despite my best efforts to stay quiet or even absent every time the subject of a mandatory volunteer came up, I basically got volunteered to go and do this. So me and all of my mid-level position glory was to represent IT. So okay, fine. I really didn't want to take part in a farce of a consultation, so all the mistakes could be labeled as unforeseeable. But if you're going to send a professional fault finder to a consultation, I hope you have a full load of ink in that pen, because trust me, you're gonna need it. The meeting comprised of 5 people from different departments, as well as Susan, who worked in facilities, who had been given the job of managing the new builds. No one seemed to think that there was a significant difference between booking rooms for training courses, making sure coffee and lunch breaks were catered, and making a multi-million-dollar building come into existence, as well as transfer hundreds of staff and thousands of students over to it. After introductions, top of the agenda was parking. And to be fair, I think it was smart to start with a contentious issue. Parking was already a problem, and the rumor was that there would be less parking at the new site. And this would be solved apparently by not having any student parking, ignoring the inconvenience this would cause, and questions over the public transport suitability. There was already not enough staff parking, so how does screwing over another group help us out? After a bit of vague details about somehow rewarding car sharing, we were furnished with the magnum opus of technology that would solve all of our issues: a gate with number plate recognition. This would stop all those pesky outsiders from coming over here and stealing all our spots, which is something that had never been an issue. Now, I had been quiet until this point as I thought it all had been a bit daft, and I was formulating a plan out of the job anyways, so these issues were unlikely to affect me much. But now that we had hit on some technology, I felt the need to chime in. I let the others ask their questions to understand how a plate number recognition gate works. For those not aware, it's a barrier with a camera. When you pull up, it reads the number plate on the front of your car, and for reference, all cars have a very standardized white front number plate in the United Kingdom. It translates that picture into numbers and letters, looks it up in the database, and if it finds a match, it opens the barrier. Once everybody understood the technology, I opened up with a problem in their happy path only thinking. I said to them, okay, so Jan and I, pointing my thumb at the unsuspecting woman sitting next to me, car share every day and she drives. But today her car is broken, so we take mine. What happens when we get to the gate? Susan looks at me and says, what do you mean? I say to her, well, my number plate won't be in the system, so what happens? Susan responds by saying, well, it could be even if you don't drive normally. I say to her, well, that assumes a level of preparation. What if it's an emergency? Susan then says, well, there will be a call button. You can speak to someone to let you in. Now, I ignored the likelihood of that call system being managed and instead focused on the loophole that she had just opened. I say to her, so I'll just be led into this carefully controlled car park with limited spaces based on my say-so? Susan stammers for a bit, and then I say, and you said I could have my number plate in the system, right? Susan said yes, please to not be talking about the space issue again. But I looked at her and said, okay, which one? Susan looked at me and said, which what? But I responded by saying, which number plate? I have 2. And when Susan clarified that yes, I do, she asked me why, and I said, because it's illegal to use the same number plate on different vehicles. Susan then said, oh, right. I then responded by saying, so can the system cope with more than one number plate? And all Susan said was, well, I'll check on that. And while she took a note about the multiple vehicle issue, I reloaded with another problem. I said to her, okay, great. What if my other vehicle is a motorbike? Susan then said, well, I don't think that will be a problem. But I explained that I'm guessing the camera's on the gate and looking at the front. Susan said, well, yes. And I obviously had to clarify, so I said, well, motorbikes don't have front number plates. How will it read it and let me in? in. Susan then said, "I'll check." And then she wrote another note and brought the meeting to an end. Well, a few weeks later, I heard from someone that there was going to be another new build consultation group meeting, but this time I had not been invited. So I'm honestly so glad I got out of that stupid meeting because trust me, I didn't want to be there in the first place. Oh my gosh, I love this so much because you literally pointed out all the problems in their system that they clearly were not ready for. So good for you for getting out of this meeting because it does sound incredibly boring and I would not want to do that myself. My entitled neighbor demands that I stop using my own Wi-Fi because according to her, it's distracting and destroying her plants. And once I heard that, I've honestly never laughed harder in my life. Here's how it went down. So I live in a townhouse complex with paper-thin walls and a whole bunch of colorful personalities. One of them is my neighbor, a woman in her late 50s, who wears tie-dye shirts every day, insists that she has a telepathic connection with crystals, and once told me that my aura was too digital. I'm usually sitting out front on my phone with my computer relaxing, and I suppose that's why she feels I'm too digital, but I don't really know. But honestly, her latest stunt truly took the cake. Last week, she knocked on my door holding a small potted plant in one hand and a printout of what looked like a hand-drawn diagram of a Wi-Fi signal in the other, and she told me that we needed to talk about my router. And honestly, I was so confused. She then explained that my Wi-Fi was disrupting the vibrational energy of her succulents. She then pointed to the drawing, which honestly looked like a sad jellyfish, and said the signal beamed directly through our shared wall and bombarded her plants nonstop. According to her, the plants were spiritually wilting because they thought the Wi-Fi was sunlight, but it wasn't. And the best part about it is that her plants were in a dark hallway with no natural light. She claimed they had been fine until I got a new modem and then gave me two options. Either turn off my Wi-Fi every night between 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning, which is apparently the plant's rest hours, or let her share my Wi-Fi and move the router into her unit so she could regulate the signal properly. I laughed because I thought she was joking, but apparently she wasn't. She then stormed off as I laughed at her, and I'm still currently waiting to see what might come out of this. Oh my god, that is crazy. Like, that's like grade A crazy. She literally tried to use her weird vibrational energies to try and get your Wi-Fi password. And this, by the way, has nothing to do with the plants. She just wants Wi-Fi. You should either turn it off or give it to me and I'll monitor it. It's like, dude, I don't know what other plants you've been consuming, if you know what I mean, but you might want to cut loose of that because it's clearly clouding your third eye or whatever. Like, dude, this lady's insane. So yeah, I love the fact that you laughed at her because this lady deserves to be laughed at. Am I overreacting to my wife's affair as she's been openly cheating on me with another man? Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I feel like a toddler throwing a temper tantrum, asking my wife why over and over again. Why would you do this to me, to us, to our family? Well, apparently my wife didn't feel loved. She said I didn't do much. She said she cheated because she changed more diapers than I did. She cheated because she cooked more than I did. She cheated because she cleaned up more than I did, and she woke up more nights to tend to our babies than I did. Not to mention walk the dogs way more than I did. My wife was a stay-at-home mom for about a year, and now she works part-time. I try my best. I work 48 hours a week. It's really hard to do everything at home when you work that much outside of the house compared to my wife's 4 hours a day at work. And for reference, we have a 2-year-old and an 8-month-old. I found out most of this information from going through my wife's phone. My wife ended up cheating on me with a man that she met at a children's group. She cheated on me with a single dad. She was immediately attracted to him because he was the only dad at the event. I mean, his wife passed away, and my wife was drawn to him for being a devoted dad. He had the time to go to these events and be a dad and work at the same time because he has involved grandparents that help out a lot. My wife would go over to his house with our kids, and I'm sure everyone's gonna ask why didn't I have my kids say anything to me, but what are they gonna do? One's 8 months old and the other one's 2. The 2-year-old has a speech delay and he can only say 2 words. My kids are too small to understand what's going on. They don't automatically think I see a different man and that means mommy is cheating. They don't understand any of that, and their memories don't work like that either. I'm sure my wife isn't doing anything nasty with this guy in front of my kids, and she keeps it friendly when my wife is around the kids in front of this man, but this is how my wife and this guy are spending so much time together too. She also lies when she says she's going somewhere and leaves the kids with me and goes out with her boyfriend. They text all the time, and that's really what made me think that something is going on, because she was just on her phone way too much. My wife says that she's not sorry for cheating on me, and I deserved it by being such an absentee father. She says that my 2-year-old prefers mom and never goes to dad, and that's because my 2-year-old doesn't know me like that, and how the kids only know their mother, and how I'm just gonna get stripped away all my parental rights when she leaves me for her boyfriend, since that's the kind of state we live in too. She told me that she fell in love with the other man, and that's what hurts the most out of all of this. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, there's no good excuse for your wife cheating on you. I'm sorry. She could say all this stuff and be like, this is your fault, but at the end of the day, she's the one that cheated. You didn't cheat, you've been
been working your butt off, literally working 48 hours a week, trying your very best. And she goes behind your back and somehow says, oh yeah, I'm cheating, but it's your fault that I'm cheating. I fell in love with someone else. This is your fault. And it's like, no, dude, if you had any self-respect, you'd be working on your marriage. So no, you're not overreacting. I'd be so pissed off and so upset as well, because your wife is the one who's throwing away everything that you guys have built together, and that is absolutely not your fault. My toxic entitled classmate humiliated me in front of the entire class. So I waited patiently and eventually got my revenge in such a way that quite literally left her speechless, as she never spoke to me ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that me and this other person were never really friends. We were just kind of classmates who sat near each other. We swapped jokes when it suited her and ignored each other the rest of the time. Well, one day in class, I said something dumb, not even trying to be funny. I was legitimately just trying to be honest, and she saw an opening. In a loud voice with a smug grin in front of the entire class, she said to me, "Oh my god, are you actually that stupid?" Well, this is when all the attention and laughter got pointed at me. The teacher didn't even check it. I just laughed it off, but on the inside, it stung. You know when you replay something later and think, I should have said something back? Well, I didn't. Instead, I waited. A couple of weeks later, we had a group project, and she ended up in mine, not as her first choice. She didn't do much, but she thought that she could still coast off of the work. So when it came time to present, I gave the teacher the version I finished without her part in it. And I also told him that she didn't contribute, and I gave proof. She then looked confused when she didn't get called up, and even more confused when she got marked separately. And she was probably the most confused when she asked if I said anything, and I just said, well, I didn't think you wanted my input. You said I was stupid, remember? I didn't make a scene, I didn't raise my voice, but I still heard someone say dang from the back of the room, and it was so sweet. She then never spoke to me ever again, but it feels good knowing that I got the last word. Okay, I'm gonna say it, I hate people like this. I hate people who only call you out to try and embarrass you, and they're not actually your friend. Seriously, these people suck. They look for reasons to complain about you, and chances are they're probably talking bad about you behind your back. Like, let's be honest, this lady probably fits the bill. She's probably gossiping about everybody. And yeah, she got that momentary pleasure of calling you out and be like, oh my god, you're so stupid. But I just love the fact that you got that last laugh. You bided your time and waited for the perfect time to strike, and my god, did it pay off wonderfully. So good for you, because that lady sounds like she absolutely deserves it. Am I the jerk for exposing my sister's fake cancer diagnosis to our parents after she refused to come clean herself? Because right now she's saying that I ruined her life, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I just found out that my sister, who has been telling my whole family she has cancer for the last 8 months, has been lying about all of it. She shaved her head, she said she was doing chemo, and even had our parents move in to help her through the treatment. I started to have doubt when, besides also staying out late relatively frequently, she would never let anyone attend appointments with her, and she clearly had way too much energy for someone going through aggressive chemotherapy. Last week, I ran into the office manager of my sister's oncologist at a coffee shop, and I casually mentioned my sister, and the office manager was confused. She had no idea who I was talking about. I then did some digging through doctors, and I spoke to my sister about what I learned, and she eventually broke down and spilled her guts. It turns out she fabricated the whole story because she was in over her head with debt and wasn't able to afford her apartment anymore. The cancer story got our parents to move in, and she could then stop paying her bills. Well, when I heard this, I was furious. I told her she had 24 hours to tell our parents the truth, or I would. She asked me not to tell them because it would ruin her relationship with them. Well, wouldn't you guess it, she didn't say a single thing. So yesterday, I took everything to our parents. And as you can probably imagine, our parents were heartbroken. My sister's now acting like I had no right to out her, and she didn't even say this part to our parents, but she was going to stage a miraculous recovery next month. She said that I ruined her life, and that families should be trying to defend each other rather than expose each other. So am I the jerk for exposing my sister for faking her cancer diagnosis? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Dude, this is crazy. Are you kidding me right now? Your sister's a terrible person. Because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Like seriously, she's faking cancer to get her parents to pay for everything. Like that is unacceptable, and I don't blame you for exposing her, because this is absolutely unacceptable. My cousin's fiance criticizes me for calling my aunt and uncle my mom and dad, claiming that even though they adopted me, apparently they're not my real parents, and I have no right to call them that. And I'm honestly so offended that I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so here's some really important background information. I'm an 18-year-old female, and when I was 3 years old, my father, unfortunately, passed away in a car crash, leaving my mother alone to take care of me. But with the death of my father, she spiraled into depression, and she became an alcoholic, and the alcohol addiction opened up to basically more addiction, and that's when my father's family stepped in. With the help of the courts, I was removed from her custody, and from there,
I was put into the care of my aunt and uncle, and they eventually adopted me after my mom passed away about a year later. So I've spent most of my life living with my aunt and uncle, and during middle school, I started to call them mom and dad. It just feels right to me, and no one in my family has any issue with it, or at least they haven't said anything about it. That is until this weekend. And for the sake of the post, I'm gonna refer to them as mom and dad for the rest of the story. So this weekend, we went to spend Memorial Day weekend at my grandparents' house on my mom's side, and at their place, they have like a 2-acre plot of land. So it's common for my extended family to go there on special occasions and or basically just holidays. Well, this weekend, I got to meet one of my cousin's fiance. It was my first time meeting her, and I'm not gonna lie, she was a bit obnoxious. And she came off a bit spoiled. Like, she seems like the kind of person who would announce a pregnancy at a wedding. On Saturday, me, my mom, my dad, my cousin, the fiance, my aunt, and uncle were all sitting at a table outside in the backyard chatting, and it's there that the fiance said to me, "It's crazy how much you look like your mom, but you look nothing like your dad." She then said to my dad, "You sure she's yours?" And the joke flopped hard, and my dad and cousin gave a courtesy chuckle, and my mom spoke up and said, "Well, she's my brother's daughter. He passed away when she was 3, and her mom couldn't take care of her, so we've been raising her ever since." The fiance then said, "Oh, but you called them mom and dad a few minutes ago." And I replied by saying, "Well, yeah." And everyone at that point was quiet for a second, and the fiance broke the silence and said, "Why?" When she said this, I was a little confused and a bit annoyed. So I said to her, "Well, because I can. It's what I want to call them." The fiance then said to me, "But that's weird. They're not your mom and dad. I don't like it." Well, as you can imagine, I was fed up with her by now, so I said to her, "Oh, okay, I'll make sure to write that down in my notes." The table was then silent, and it was super awkward after that, and I dismissed myself from the table and I went to hang out with my grandma. Now, I thought that the whole situation was over, but the next morning when I walked into the kitchen, my mom, my grandparents, and the fiance were in there, and I walked up to my mom and I hugged her saying, "Good morning, Mom." After I said that, the fiance looked at us and said, "I already told you, I don't like it when you call them that. They're your aunt and uncle, not your parents." My grandpa then said, "Hey, it's none of your business what the girl calls them. Mind your own business." Now, after that, she didn't really talk to me much, but she would give me weird looks whenever we were in the same room. But regardless, I hopefully won't see her again for a while, and I kind of feel bad for my cousin who has to deal with her, because her attitude is incredibly inappropriate. Okay, seriously, this fiance was like actively pissing me off as I was reading this. You literally were adopted by your aunt and uncle. So guess what? They are legally your parents. That is literally how it works. Just because they were your aunt and uncle first doesn't mean that they're not now your parents after your parents have passed away and they adopted you. Like, that lady's an idiot for not only speaking up like that, especially with a family that she does not know, but also to be like, you can't say that because I don't like it when you say that. And it's like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. That is so stupid. So yeah, this fiance of your cousin is a complete moron, and I would not pay them any mind, because those are absolutely your parents. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My manager told me to follow the schedule no matter what, so I did exactly that, closing our store incredibly early, resulting in my manager getting written up, as well as a lot of pissed off customers that couldn't get what they wanted. Here's how it went down. Okay, so this happened a few years back when I worked at a small chain retail store. I was a part-time shift supervisor, which basically meant I had all the responsibility and none of the pay. And we had this new manager who came in like a hurricane. She was super into structure and rules and wanted everything to be done exactly how corporate outlined it, which is fine. I'm all for structure. That is, until it becomes absolutely absurd. The issue started when we began getting inconsistent shipments and corporate would update our hours week by week. One week we would close by 9 o'clock and the next it would be 8 o'clock. The posted hours on the door weren't always updated quickly, and I would sometimes use discretion to keep the store open a little later if I saw customers still browsing around. You know, customer service and all that. But then my manager, who we will call Becky, pulls me aside one day and said that I was not being consistent. These were her words. "I don't care if there are 20 people in the store. If the schedule says close at 8, you close at 8. Lock the doors at 8 o'clock sharp. Don't use your judgment. Follow the schedule no matter what." Then she sent me an email about it just to remind me. So this is where I decided to maliciously comply. That Friday, the mall was doing some late night promo thing and we were packed. Our schedule said 8 o'clock p.m. closing though, so I did exactly what I was told. At 7:55, I got on the intercom and I announced, "Attention shoppers, the store will be closing in 5 minutes. Please bring your items up to the front." Now, people were confused. Other stores were staying open late, but I followed orders and at 8 o'clock sharp, I locked the doors. And even then, we had over 30 customers still inside, most of them with full carts. I made them all check out or leave, and some were pissed off, and some just left everything behind. I mean, we lost a lot of sales. Now, what's the cherry on top of this entire story? Becky showed up at 8 o'clock to check on how we handled the crowd and was livid to find the store dark and closed. She even tried to throw me under the bus, but I had her email printed out and highlighted where she said, "Do not use discretion. Follow the posted schedule exactly." Well, as a result, she got a formal write-up from the district manager, and from that point on, I was encouraged to use my judgment once again. Oh man, I love this so much because managers like this are so obnoxious. They literally give you specific guidelines that you need to follow, and then when you actually do that, and it doesn't work out the way they want it to, they try to turn around and be like, "Oh, this is your fault. You're the one that did this." And it's like, dude, thank God you got something in writing. Because if she didn't leave that paper trail, you can bet that she absolutely would have pinned this on you. And that is absolutely messed up. Like, that is so unfair. So good for you for getting back at this lady because she absolutely deserved it. An entitled Karen demands that I turn over my shopping cart to her literally as I'm checking out of the store, as she refuses to take no for an answer, despite the fact that I had $200 worth of groceries I needed to get to my car. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I was shopping at the grocery store checking out. I have a full cart of weekly shopping, some bulk items, party supplies for a little get-together that I'm having, and I'm literally halfway through checking out when this entitled Karen walks up behind me with nothing in her hands, just giving me the stink eye for my cart. And then she pats me on the back and says, "I need your cart." Now, I assumed she was referring to when I was done, so I said, "Oh, all right, I'm still using it though." She then says to me, "No, I need it now. I'm in a hurry and I don't have time to find one. I'm rushing to catch up with something." Now, when she said this, I was literally just standing there speechless. I said to her, "Ma'am, I'm literally using it right now." She then puffs out her chest and says to me, "Well, then take out your stuff. You can just carry it or put it in baskets. I only have a few things to get." Well, the cashier is now giving me the stare. The people behind me are piling up, and I just say to her, "No, I'm not unpacking $200 worth of groceries just because you don't feel like walking 10 feet to get a cart." She then muttered something about people not helping each other anymore, and then she stormed out. I then noticed that she wheeled a cart straight close to the entrance when she left, meaning she walked past them to come disturb me in the first place, which honestly baffles me because this is such a waste of everybody's time. Oh my gosh, this is really weird behavior. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard of anybody going up to someone in line and being like, "Oh, give me your cart." Because even during like busy times, you can always find some kind of cart near like the front of the store. Why would you go up to someone in line and be like, "Oh, I need that one right now. No one else's, just yours." So yeah, this was really weird, and I don't blame you for being like, "What in the heck is going on right now?" Because I know if I was in your shoes, I would be pretty annoyed as well. My entitled coworker insists that I change my vacation days, all because her trip is more fun than mine. Here's what's going on. So at my workplace, we have to ask for vacation time months in advance at work because only a certain number of people can be off at a time. Well, I booked a week of vacation for a family reunion, and this is the first time we've all been together in years. Well, along comes Karen, who obviously didn't plan ahead and now wants to take the exact same week off for a Cancun trip with her friends. When she finds out I already had that week approved, she then asked me to cancel mine. I laughed at first because I thought she was kidding, but apparently she wasn't. She said to me, "Well, it's just a family thing, right? Mine is a real vacation with more fun than yours. I already told everyone that I'm going." I told her, "Well, yeah, but I already booked my flights like months ago." She didn't like that answer and actually tried to guilt trip me in front of my other coworkers, saying that I was being selfish and wrecking her once-in-a-lifetime trip. And by the way, as a side note, she goes on at least 3 vacations a year. When I wouldn't budge, she went to our manager and complained. And luckily, my boss wasn't stupid and said no if she wanted the time off that badly, and that she should have given advance notice. And as a result, she pouted for days and gave me the cold shoulder, all over vacation days that she easily could have planned for. Okay, I love this story because I've run into this exact same situation. You book plane tickets for a trip of some kind, you're going on vacation, you have a reunion, whatever, and then you have that one coworker that everybody hates that you just kind of have to put up with, who comes in and tries to be like, "Oh, you should cancel your trip." Like, that is super obnoxious, so I love the fact that the original poster shut this Karen down, because her behavior is super entitled and no one deserves to deal with that. My manager always called for a 20-minute meeting after work that was also unpaid, so I decided to get some revenge by literally refusing to show up and showing him exactly why this was a stupid idea. Here's how I did it. Okay, to start things out, this was a small team of 10 people that the manager was assigned to, with myself included. It's also important to note that this is not in America, so the US labor laws don't apply here. I was the last person to be hired on the team, so everybody was my senpai, And on the first day that I worked there, they called a team meeting after work. We log off our computers at about 4:55 p.m. We go to the meeting room and we clock out at about 5:15 p.m. And we do this every single day like clockwork. Now I said no problem, that's an extra 2.5 hours on a bi-weekly paycheck. And we didn't have to do any actual work besides listen, like yeah, I'm totally okay with that. Well, when my first payday came in, I saw my full 80 hours, but the extra 2.5 hours were nowhere to be found. So I asked a couple of guys if they only got paid 80 hours too, and they all confirmed it, which meant that we were not getting paid for these meetings. The shift ends and once again, the manager called for the daily team meeting and to log off at 4:55 and then head to the meeting room. So you know what? I do so. And with that, I sit there for about 5 minutes. And as soon as it hits 5 o'clock p.m., I get up and I say that I need to be somewhere important with everyone's eyes on me. The manager says okay, and then I leave the room, clocking out, and I go home. Well, the next day I do the same thing, and I keep doing that over and over again. And you know what? The manager never stops me. But one day, the manager pulls me to the side and asks me what's this important thing that I need to do after work every day. But it's then that I tell him it's a personal matter, and he leaves it at that. But pretty soon, he catches on. The other guys start leaving right after me, and eventually, within a matter of days of me starting to leave at 5 o'clock, everyone else started doing it too. So the manager started scheduling the meetings for 4:40 p.m., and all it took was one person to not take that crap anymore. Okay, dude, there is nothing that pisses me off more about working a job than having to work unpaid hours. I don't care if it's only 2 hours out of my paycheck. You better believe you're gonna pay me for that, especially if you're keeping me over. So good for you for, like, in a roundabout way, showing them that no, you're not gonna stick around off the clock, because that kind of behavior towards your employee is absolutely atrocious. Today, I got my manager yelled at by a customer over his dumb new rule for our restaurant, causing that rule to be fixed immediately after he got chewed out. Here's how it went down. So to understand what happened, you need to first understand two people, and we'll call these people Susan and Jack. You see, I used to work part-time at a burger joint that had a drive-thru, and I was often the one at the window. Susan was a regular customer, and everyone there had an opinion about her. She's very particular, and has a tendency to snap at you if you don't do it right the first time without being asked. I was her favorite employee though, because I would always take the time to chat with her if we weren't busy. She was actually quite pleasant once you got to know her, just a little bit prickly. And this is where I need to talk about Jack. He was the new general manager, and he was brought in to fix the restaurant. Now, I don't think there was anything that needed fixing, but the owner disagreed. He was originally meant to be the assistant general manager, but then the owner fired our old general manager and Jack was put in charge. He was a piece of work, the kind of manager that you don't want to have. My favorite Jack moment was when he pulled all the staff on shift into the back, literally while we were still open, just to lecture us on not smiling enough. And I'm sure you know the type of manager I'm talking about. Now, one thing we had to do in the drive-thru is put a numbered sticker on the car's side mirror. This sticker was used by the runners who took food out to identify the car, so it was very important. But Susan, however, didn't like having the sticker on her mirror. She was convinced that she would get in an accident if the mirror was covered even a little, and always insisted on having it put on the car door instead. This wasn't out of the ordinary. I mean, we put stickers on doors all the time when we couldn't reach the mirror. However, Jack decided he wasn't having it and made a new rule that we only put stickers on mirrors. And I figured, okay, but if the customer asked for it, it should still be fine, right? Well, no, I was completely wrong. I got chewed out for putting the sticker on Susan's car door. I tried to explain to Jack why I did it, but he wouldn't even listen to me. Eventually, he just huffed at me and said, "Look, you need to put the stickers on the mirror and not the door. No exceptions." Well, fine then. I'll cue my malicious compliance and we'll see how this goes. The next time Susan came in, I put the sticker on her mirror as ordered. And when I did this, she was confused, as I always put it on her door without being asked. She then snapped at me, "What are you doing? Don't put it there, I'll get into an accident." I then explained to her the new rule and that my hands were tied. I mean, I didn't want to get in trouble after all. Then I told her it was Jack's rule. Now, I didn't get to witness the next day directly, unfortunately. However, I heard about it secondhand from my coworkers. Apparently, one of the runners brought out her food, she stopped them and asked them to grab Jack. She then proceeded to give Jack the chewing out of a lifetime about his dumb rule. One particular quote that was relayed to me was basically saying, "What point is it to force them to put it there? They can see it just fine on the door." And you know what, Susan? Those are my thoughts exactly. Anyway, the rule was later amended that customers could request the sticker to be placed on their door. And trust me, this made my life with Susan a lot easier. Yeah, this is a stupid thing that Jack literally brought upon himself. All he had to do was be accommodating to the customer, dude. It's not that serious. Just put the sticker on their car. I mean, like, come on. So yeah, Jack got exactly what he deserved because his rule was incredibly dumb. And entitled Karen chews me out, all because I don't know all the details about the lawn and garden center that I work at my store, stating that I should know everything about this place and everything about the plant she's buying, even though I'm just a cashier. Here's what happened. moment. So I was cashiering in the lawn and garden center at my store. When I was trained as a cashier, there was no training on the products throughout the store, just how to scan the product and the basics of customer service. Therefore, I really don't know anything about the plants and trees and flowers. That's the associate's job. They stock them so they know where they are located. The store phones will often not be useful in the location due to getting multiple lawn and garden trucks during the week, and the associates moving things around to make room for new products. But ultimately, I don't know anything about whether this plant or that flower will thrive in full sun, or if the ferns are still outside, or if they move them again. As a cashier, you are not allowed to leave your register to roam around or help the customer find something. My job is to ring you up, and that's it. The clientele in lawn and garden are mostly pleasant people looking to build their gardens or buy a lovely plant for their mother, but often, at least in every shift, there is one person who feels slighted because you have no knowledge. Well, this older lady comes up and has a baggie full of plants and flowers. She began putting the plants one by one on the counter and asking me questions about them, to which I would answer, I don't know and I'm not sure. I offered to find an associate for her, but she just waved her hand like it was no big deal. By about the fifth plant, after I had said yet again that I didn't know, she pulls her sunglasses off, looks me in the eye, clearly exacerbated, and says, "How can you work here and know nothing about plants?" I then told her that I was rotated throughout the store like the other cashiers, and that we are not trained to know the products we are selling, and that because we are not allowed to leave the register, I can't really familiarize myself with the plants and flowers. I asked again if she would like me to find an associate who does know the products, and she said she didn't have the time to wait for someone. I then plucked the plastic label from one of her plants out of the soil, and I showed her that it tells a little bit about how to care for the plant, and also there's a QR code that she can scan with her phone that will help out as well. Now, I was sincerely trying to be helpful, but she took that as me being snarky, and I could tell by the way she gave me a long stare. As she finished paying, she put her glasses back on and said nonchalantly, "Do you have a break coming up?" Now, this was an odd question, but I checked the clock and I said, "Yes, ma'am. I have a break in about 30 minutes. She then said to me, "Well, perhaps on your break you can walk around here and learn something." I then wished her a good day, and I took my 30-minute break where I just sat in my car, listened to some music, and ate a Slim Jim. And then I took a nap like normal. And also, perhaps when she got home that day, she looked up the plants that she bought and learned something, because none of that is my responsibility. Dude, that lady's so annoying, especially in a world with smartphones. Like, really? You need to ask someone and harass some like hourly worker and be like, "Oh, you know nothing," instead of looking it up herself and being like, "Okay, what kind of sunlight does this stupid plant need?" Like, why go after a cashier who literally explained why they don't know anything about the store? That's literally not their job to know all this stuff. That's the associates. I can't stand people who act like that. That is so annoying. So truly, I think you handled this really well, especially when this Karen was being an obnoxious jerk. Am I the jerk for deciding to leave work early in protest since my two coworkers stay in the back for more than 10 minutes and literally don't do any work? Here's what's going on. Okay, so I work in a place with two of my coworkers. Let's call them Zane and Marisha. And they have developed a habit of vanishing into the back room together during every shift. Every time we're scheduled together, they disappear for long stretches of time, leaving me alone up front doing all the work. Now, this is not a one-time thing. It's a pattern. I'm left juggling everything by myself while they're God knows where doing who knows what. It's frustrating, demoralizing, and honestly just disrespectful. Oh, and guess what? Management has already talked to them about this. More than once, mind you, and nothing's changed. Zane and Marisha keep doing it like they're invincible. And if you try to bring it up directly, Marisha immediately gets defensive and snaps with something like, "Well, I've been here since really early and I already did everything." And it's like, okay, and? You're still on the clock. It's not your break time. Just because you were here earlier doesn't mean that you're now entitled to vanish and leave your coworkers stranded like it's recess. We're all getting paid to be here and do our jobs, not hide in the back while someone else cleans up the mess. So I've reached my limit. This has been happening for over a year. I've decided that the next time they both disappear into the back and stay there for more than 10 minutes, I'm just gonna leave. I'm clocking out and I'm walking out because I'm done being the only one who cares. Some people are telling me that that's dramatic or unprofessional, but I feel like it's the only way anyone's gonna take me seriously. So I need to know, would I be the jerk if I walked out next time they vanish on me again? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. Okay, in my opinion, I don't think this is your problem, but instead this really does need to keep going to management. And if you haven't already, I would make a paper trail immediately of all the reports you make. Walking out and clocking out is only gonna get you in trouble and probably fired. Like, that's not gonna give any benefit to you, and if anything, it's just gonna give them a reason to fire you. Like, I'm just not convinced any real change is gonna happen by doing that. So instead, I would keep reporting it to management and even go to corporate if you need to, because this kind of behavior is super frustrating. I completely get it. Here you are trying to do your job and make sure the store is run properly, and two of the people that you work with are literally missing in action. They're not doing what they're supposed to, and they're just off probably in the back hanging out. And trust me, I totally get it, that's not fair and you should not have to deal with that. But on that same note, you should not be the person to enforce any kind of rules, and you shouldn't try to get back at them by clocking out and leaving. You're only going to risk your job, and it's only going to get you in trouble. Because if management doesn't care about Zane and Marisha literally going off and doing whatever they want, then trust me, they will not care about firing you and finding a replacement. My relatives demanded that I give them a family discount at my own food stall, claiming that because they're family, they deserve a discount. But after I told them that they needed to pay full price, they literally freaked out and left a 1-star review, claiming that my food was overpriced and that I had rude customer service. Here's how it all went down. So I opened a small street food stall after graduating culinary school. It's something I'd been working towards for years, testing recipes, saving up, and finally getting permits and a spot. The first week, a few cousins and an aunt showed up, and I was actually happy at first, and I really thought they came to support me. They ordered a ton of food, like enough for 5 people when there were only 3 of them. But when I gave them the bill, they all laughed at me, like literally laughed. My cousin then says, "Wait, you're charging us? We are family." But when I tried to explain that this is my actual job now, and everything I make goes back into keeping the stall running, my aunt scoffed at me and said, "Well, I guess success went to your head. I thought we were closer than that." And sure, they paid for their meal, but with so much attitude that it ruined my whole vibe that day. Well, 2 days later, I noticed that someone left a 1-star review on Google that said it was overpriced and that I had rude customer service. But when I checked the account, it was one of my cousin's email. And now I just smile when relatives say they want to swing by for a bite, because guess what? You can absolutely come by, but it's also going to be at full price. Wow, talk about super entitled. If I busted my butt in culinary school and getting a place and getting permits and literally saving up for years to do this one job, and then one of my family members pulled this crap, I think I would go crazy, bro. There's no way I would put up with that. So you're much better than me, because I definitely would have responded back tenfold, because this kind of behavior is absolutely atrocious. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My idiotic job made us take a lunch break on a 5-hour workday, and despite the fact that I tried to tell them it would be more efficient to just work through the 5 hours, they denied my request and instead decided to waste everybody's time. Here's how it went down. Now, I want to start off by saying that I've always been a malicious compliance kind of guy. I also follow the rules to the letter, but I tend to make them work in my favor. My workplace has traditionally done early dismissal on the day before a holiday. Over 20 years ago, human resources discovered that people were taking advantage, coming in earlier and leaving earlier, coming in later and then working less time, etc. So the human resources director at the time put out a memo via email that the schedule for the half day before a holiday would be a regular schedule, meaning that you were to come in at your normal start time and take your normal breaks. Most of the staff worked 8 to 4 and dismissal was at 1. There's also a rule that employees must provide a lunch break after 6 hours of work. Well, I read the memo about the regular schedule, and I thought it was silly for me to come in at 8, take an unrequired lunch at 12, and then have to leave at 1. Instead, I would just work the 5 hours and then jet out of there. On the morning of the early dismissal, me and some of the others were discussing how it didn't make sense. I then returned to my desk and I hit reply all to the email the HR director sent out, asking if it didn't just make more sense to skip lunch and work a straight 5. Now, it's important to know that she and I had a history. I wasn't the best employee at the time, and I always cited chapter and verse when they bent or broke a rule. Well, even though I was trying to be helpful and my idea would have actually worked out in the workplace's favor, I guess all she saw was my name and a question. She replied to all in all caps and said, "There is no discussion. It is a regular work day. You start at your regular time, take breaks at your regular time, and then leave at 1 o'clock. This actually resulted in more lost time than the start time shenanigans they were trying to eliminate. And now everyone got an extra paid hour off, with a slight inconvenience of having to return to punch out. We're 10 minutes from a large shopping center, so that hour is a trip to the supermarket on the day before Thanksgiving or stocking stuffers on Christmas Eve. For 20 years, this policy was carried forward. On early dismissal days, we would come in at 8 o'clock, take a break from 9 o'clock until 9:15, then leave for lunch at 12, only to return at 1 to punch out. It was then changed a few years ago to a policy where you only had to work 5 hours to accommodate the people who regularly come in earlier than 8 o'clock. But we are still directed to take all breaks on a regular schedule, which honestly, in retrospect, all of this could have been fixed a lot sooner if they had simply listened. Oh man, the original poster has a lot of guts because there is no way I would ever do a reply all to everybody. everybody. That tags everybody that got that email, dude. That's crazy. And instead of saving face, I love the fact that this human resources director is like, oh, it's that one person. I hate them, therefore I gotta make myself look crazy. So good for you for asking the right questions, because clearly this needed to be fixed. And the fact that it took that long is insane in my opinion. An entitled Karen comes into my sober living facility and is completely ungrateful for the services she's being given. And I'm honestly blown away by her behavior. Here's what happened. Okay, so I live in a sober living facility where we each have our own apartment. All we're asked to do is attend a 30-minute morning group at 8 o'clock in the morning, a meeting via Zoom from 12:30 to 3:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Psych ED from 9 to 11 on Monday and Friday. Weekends are free, plus there's 3 AA meetings a week. That's it. It's not exactly boot camp, especially when they're helping get us clean and off the streets, like literally saving our lives. Anyways, a new couple moved in yesterday, and they'd been living in a one-person tent with a twin-size air mattress. We're talking 2 full-grown adults in the middle of summer sweating their butts off. Their ride bailed on them, so our peer support went out himself to get them. Well, this morning, he had to wake them up just to get them to the 8 o'clock group meeting. Again, it's only 30 minutes. When it came time for our daily gratitude circle, the girl of this couple goes, "My name is Amber, and I am not an addict, so I don't even know why the F I'm here. This meeting is stupid, and I'm grateful for lots of things, but this ain't one of them." And I swear to God, I thought it was nighttime for a second with all the crickets I heard chirping. Everybody just kind of sat there, open-mouthed in disbelief. Like, girl, if you're not an addict, then why are you in a free sober housing? They plucked you out of a sweatbox tent and gave you air conditioning and a real mattress. And your reaction is to say this is stupid? I mean, did you really think you were coming to a 5-star suite, free housing and fluff pillows and chocolate drops? I mean, I was floored, just absolutely baffled by the audacity. Some people act like the world owes them a Hilton suite and a therapist with snacks, which in my mind really qualifies this lady as an entitled Karen. Yeah, I completely agree with the original poster. Here you are, probably at your rock bottom or at least really close, and you're being offered a service that will help you get your life together. So for you to sit there and be like, oh, this is stupid, I am not an addict, I just happen to be in a sober living housing unit, whatever. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? Clearly you have some kind of problem. They're not just gonna pick up anybody for this. Like, seriously, have some kind of gratitude for this. So yeah, I completely agree with the original poster. This lady's a complete Karen and she's completely ungrateful. My job has a customer that comes in and truly acts incredibly weird. And anytime he does come in, I walk away with more questions than answers literally every single time. Here's what's going on. Okay, so listen, I don't know how to describe the following without sounding a bit crazy, but basically I work front of house to a restaurant chain, and we aren't super big, but we do have locations in over 30 states. So it's not a mom and pop place. Anyways, there's this one guy that we have as a client, and for the sake of the story, I will call him Silent Bob. You'll see why soon, as he shows up sometimes once in a week, sometimes 3 times, and sometimes never for several weeks. But when he does show up, things change in the restaurant. And mind you, we are usually a busy location. We mostly operate on breakfast, and that's the only hint that I will give. He shows up between 10 to 11 o'clock in the morning, and not a minute after and not a minute before those times. And like I said, sometimes he just never shows up at all. And yet, we have these 2 booths in the back corner in a slightly darker area, and that's a section that we keep the blinds in that side deliberately down. On top of that, we keep one of those booths always open between 10 and 11. This guy shows up, says nothing, walks over to one of them that is empty, and then sits down. And with that, the whole dance begins. His order is always, and I mean always, the same. 1 side of tomato soup with 4 packs of crackers salted, 2 orders of buttered grits served in a soup bowl together, 2 orders of 2 eggs poached and soft with a little bit of runniness in it, served on top of the grits, 1 glass of ice cubes with no water, 1 water pitcher, 2 orange juices ice cold, and 4 strips of bacon. This is also not overly unusual, except that we don't do that sort of special requests on the bowls and orange juice, and we definitely don't do that for any other guest. But for him, there is a pitcher of orange juice Tropicana put in the freezer at 9 o'clock in the morning so that it is ice cold or slushy-like to serve if he comes in. Now, the tomato soup and grits is no problem. Even the whole serving is a 0 real issue. It's a big part of the menu, so we have it on order all the time. The poached eggs are a slightly different matter. The moment this guy walks in, either I or whomever's at the front is supposed to let the kitchen know that the poached OJ special is in. And with that, those 4 eggs get started and a server will get 2 orange juices, some water, etc., all going to the table. No one is to talk to him, ask him if he wants the check, or bother him in any way unless he calls for it, which is also weird. So we leave one of those milkshake flags on his table laid down, and if it goes up, he wishes for something else, which is 90% of the time more orange juice or water. Now, we do not have those milkshake flags for anything else in our restaurant. It's only for him and for that explicit purpose. When he's done, he gets up and walks away, and we are not to talk to him. If for some reason he has forgotten an item in the booth, the manager will take care of it. These are the very instructions I received from the manager about him, because apparently this guy has an arrangement for the service to be this way. My manager's words at the end of the week, should he have graced us with his presence, is that we get cash infusion tip that comes out to around $100 each. Our manager does not explicitly say it's from this guy, and he refuses to talk about anything related to him unless it's that we may in some way have an issue with the particulars of his order, such as having no OJ in the inventory. But we all know it's from him since we only get it if he comes in that week. The service is not a real hassle in any way that is truly meaningful, but it's just interesting enough for me to walk away with so many questions. Dude, this guy's either like some kind of spy or like international hitman, or he's like a private owner of the franchise or something like that. Like, is your boss involved with a mafia? Like, dude, what's going on right now? This sounds incredibly sketchy, and I don't blame you for having questions, but I think to be on the safe side, it would probably be better to just avoid Silent Bob. Just give him what he wants, and everybody, I think from the sounds of it, will be very happy. I found another woman's sock in my house after being away for a week from my boyfriend, and now he's freaking out on me and saying that he's not cheating on me, despite the fact that I just want him to tell me the truth. Here's what's going on. To start things out, I was away for a week for work. He was off work nearly this entire time, as he works 1 week on and 1 week off. When I came home, my boyfriend had cleaned the house up quite extensively. Obviously not a crime in itself, but it was surprising and a little bit out of character. I usually have to do most of the cleaning, so it was completely unexpected. He'd even picked up some of my laundry that I'd left in the washroom and living room and put it in the basket. And I was surprised, but I didn't think much of it. He started night shifts the day after I returned, and I was working days. So I came home from work after he had left, and I figured that I'd spend some time cleaning the house since he had done that as well. There's a shop vac that'd been sitting just outside our bedroom door for a few weeks that I finally moved to the closet. And when I moved it, I found a sock just behind it. It was a small ankle sock, obviously women's, and a brand that I've never seen before. I had a bad feeling by this point, but I put the sock on a table by my bedside and I continued cleaning, intending to ask him about it when he returned from work early in the morning. Well, when I asked him whose sock it was, he said that he didn't know. He then said he found it on the stairs and thought it was mine, so he put it there. But the thing is, I put the sock there. I doubt that he had even seen it around the house, or else it wouldn't have been behind the shop vac. And if he had seen it and thought it was mine, wouldn't he have tried to, like, I don't know, put it in the basket with my other clothing that he'd put away? I told him that I put the sock there, and I asked him why he lied about putting it there. He said he didn't have anybody over and he didn't know whose sock it was. I then left and he got ready for work and he went to sleep. And at this point, I'm wondering if he's cheating on me or not, or what I should really do, because right now I seriously am at such a loss. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update. Here's what they have to say. Well, my boyfriend woke up and I'm sitting here in the office area doing some work, but also periodically crying and reading the comments on my post. He came into the room and tried cuddling with me behind my chair, and I was obviously stiff, and he asked me why I was mad at him. I said that I didn't know why he wasn't honest with me earlier about the sock, and he said he didn't lie to me. I said that I put the sock there on the table so he couldn't have done it, but he said that he had meant that he found the sock while cleaning and tossed it aside, landing forgotten behind the shop vac. Well, he then got super mad, saying that I'm accusing him of cheating, swearing around and saying that he's not coming on our trip to my parents' house during the summer, and that he's staying home all summer, and that a friend of mine who was supposed to rent the house for work during the summer can't stay there then because he'll be here. I asked him why he was getting so mad and said that I'd been upset and I just needed an explanation and reassurance from him, but he continued to lose it. He stormed towards the door and threw his cup of coffee down the stairs. He then grabbed an old baseball bat that we keep by the stairs and started hitting the step outside the door, yelling that he's not cheating on me. He threw his lunch that he'd packed up for work all over the steps, and then he peeled off in his truck. And that's currently where we're at, because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, I don't know about you, but for me, it really seems like this guy's super guilty. Like, just think about it for a second. He's the one that brought up the fact, like, oh yeah, I didn't bring anybody over, but you didn't accuse him of bringing anyone over. You literally said, hey, whose sock is this, and why did you lie to me? And I don't know about you, but literally grabbing a baseball bat and hitting the stairs and screaming, I'm not cheating on you, as well as throwing your coffee and your lunch all over the place, that doesn't scream innocent in my mind. That screams you got caught cheating and now you're having to pay for it. So yeah, it seems like this guy's cheating, and if that is the case, I am so sorry that you're dealing with this. But hopefully the truth comes out one way or the other, because the way your boyfriend's acting is super sketchy. My boyfriend wants his autistic brother to live with us when his his parents can no longer do so. And right now that really scares me, as I feel right now that our 7-year relationship is in jeopardy. Here's what's going on. I'm a 26-year-old female and I've been with my 27-year-old boyfriend for over 7 years now. And at this point, we've been starting to talk about leveling up our relationship to the next level. He is a good man and I do love him, but I'm really scared about the future. For context, he has a 20-year-old sibling who has severe autism. He has the brain of a 2-year-old. He cannot communicate, but somewhat understands a few words based on his reactions, and he does vocal stimming. And right now, he's under the care of both of his parents. My boyfriend told me that when the time comes that his parents can no longer take care of his brother, he plans to take him in with us. And that honestly just scared me. I'm a light sleeper, so if he does vocal stimming at night, at worst every night, I don't know if I'm ever going to get enough sleep. He also seems kind of violent sometimes. At one point, he pulled my hair really hard at their family gathering for no reason. I also want to have a dog in the future, but I'm not sure if he's going to be okay with it. Right now, they have dogs, but they don't let them inside the house. And what about if we have kids? How are they going to react to this? To add on to that, he also poops everywhere and literally needs to be monitored 24/7 because he does a lot of things like drinking water from the toilet or eating things that he shouldn't. As a person who loves to travel, I feel like when he starts living with us, we won't be able to travel as a complete family, as he would have to stay with him. There's all sorts of questions in my head and anxious thoughts that weigh so much. I don't want to break up, and sometimes I blame myself for not thinking this through from the very beginning. But I don't regret every single moment with my boyfriend. I love him so much and I was ready to be his bride. But not until this came into the picture, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, you better know exactly what you want before you marry this guy. Because from the sounds of it, it seems like he's gonna bring in his brother pretty much no matter what. Which is basically saying, yeah, you're gonna help take care of my brother that, by the way, is a little bit violent. Because look, in my opinion, I think he needs professional help. I totally understand the parents stepped up, like that's fantastic, but this is not your burden. And I seriously mean that. It should not be your responsibility to take care of this guy. So if you really don't feel comfortable with this and your boyfriend really wants to take care of his brother, then maybe this is not the best relationship for you. Like, that's obviously up to you to figure out, but I know if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be reconsidering everything, especially if caring for someone like that is not in my plans. I disowned my father 10 years ago, but today I found out that someone in my family is giving him updates on my pregnancies. And at this point, I feel betrayed and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So my mom and father had me in high school. They got married and divorced about a year later, leaving me to legally be split in custody between them the majority of my childhood. My father was awful. I tried to emancipate myself in my teens to get out of the custodial contract and give my mom full custody, but my lawyer said by the time we went through the due process, I would already be 18 years old. So the recommendation was to wait and disown him once the contract ended, which I did on my 18th birthday. My father is also a diagnosed psychopath. He lies and manipulates and gaslights, but on the outside, he is a high-ranking city official who is best friends with the mayor. Point being is that he does not care about boundaries, and he has his way of prying information from people without them even realizing it. Sometimes, though, he doesn't care if you realize he's doing it or not. He will break those boundaries in public ways, just to cause you psychological distress. It's been 10 years of no contact. Because of the way he networks, I also cut off several members of my family and friends who overlap relationships with him, so I've always felt relatively safe sharing my life with my inner circle. I'm currently pregnant with my husband and I's second child after our first pregnancy unfortunately ended late term about 18 months ago. I was speaking to my mom about it today, which she asked if I was going to tell my father. Baffled because it's been 10 years of no contact, I said of course not, why? And that's when she mentioned that he knew about the first one and assumed that I had told him. Now for context, they also went no contact after my custodial contract ended, but according to her, during our first pregnancy, he texted her for the first time in years and simply asked if there were any grandbabies yet. She said she told him no because technically I was still pregnant and one hadn't been born yet. Well, he didn't respond. She said the timing and the random question was uncanny, and I completely agree. The part of it all is that we never did a public pregnancy announcement because we knew there was a chance of something going wrong. My husband and I only verbally told our inner circle. It's worth mentioning that we also live on the opposite side of the country from him, so I don't necessarily think it's possible for someone to cross paths with him and bring it up. But I also wouldn't put it past him to do some traveling just to get some information. All this to say is that we were going to announce our current pregnancy, and now I'm very hesitant to do so. Growing up, there were several times with him that I was put in unsafe situations. So I do not want this man to be in our child's life, to the point that I don't even want him to know our child exists, especially for all of our safety. My inner circle knows this, and I feel completely betrayed and scared, and I feel like I'm I'm blowing it out of proportion, but I feel like I'm not at the same time. I feel like I don't know who I can trust. I don't know how to navigate this pregnancy and my child's life after birth, and I almost feel like I'm incapable of protecting them, and it really hurts. So truly, how do I navigate this situation? Because right now I'm at a complete loss. Okay, it really seems like there's a rat in your inner circle, and that really sucks. It reminds me of that scene in Game of Thrones where Tyrion Lannister is like giving false information to a bunch of people, and then he waits to see what gets back to him to find out who the rat is. So you could try something like that, but that would be really complicated and weird, and I just don't think that's a good idea. But it certainly is an option if you want to try and get down to the bottom of it. The other path you can take is literally just by asking people and saying, hey, I don't want my dad knowing about my life. Did you tell him about anything going on? And try to sniff it out from there, because seriously, you have a right to privacy. So hopefully this all works out, because your dad sounds like a monster, and I would not want them around any of my future children if I was in your shoes. My ex-husband's ex-girlfriend treated me like garbage for the majority of my son's childhood, saying that I was an awful mother and that I was going to ruin my child's life forever, all because of my bad parenting. But today I finally got my revenge, as I proved once and for all that not only was I a better mother than her, but also that her son was a mess up from the very beginning. And it honestly feels so good to get some revenge on this lady, because trust me, this Karen absolutely deserves it. Here's what happened. Many years ago, I was married to an absolute jerk. A jerk who cheated on me repeatedly and who was verbally awful towards me. And the day things turned physical is the day I filed for divorce. And worst of all, we had a son who was 5 when we divorced. Well, cut to a year after the divorce, and my ex had a girlfriend. One that stuck around longer than many of the others had. And I had strongly suspected that she had been one of his on and off affair partners. She was divorced from a wealthy man, and she was begrudgingly polite to me, but always had to smirkingly let me know that she had money, and felt that she was superior to me in every way, as was her son to mine, and that she looked down on me. Now this woman, let's call her Jamie, had a boy my son's age, and we'll call him John for the sake of the story. Jamie and my ex would occasionally ask me to babysit her son, and I always said yes, because number one, it wasn't the kid's fault that my ex was a jerk, and that his mother was a slime that slept with married men. And secondly, the kids got along, and my son would be seeing him anyway on dad's custody days. Why punish the children because their parents were jerks? And let's also call my boy Sam. Now John wasn't a bad kid, he was just incredibly entitled. He once told me that I was poor because I cleaned my house myself and I didn't have a maid. I then pointed out that he was poor too, as all of the money in his world came from his dad's alimony payments to his mom, but that he, John, had no money of his own, which made him even poorer than I was. One conversation that John and I had at my house went something like this. John looked at me and said, "I want toast and jam." I said okay, but then he asked me, "Do you have any marmalade?" After I said yes, he asked me what kind of bread I have. And when I told him I had whole wheat bread, he said to me, "Good, then make me toast with marmalade on whole wheat bread and cut the crusts off. I hope it's good marmalade." And for some weird reason, that conversation has always stuck with me. Many years later, long after my ex and Jamie had broken up and our children were grown, I ran into Jamie at a local event. Now, as an aside, many people thought that because I was this tiny, poor, struggling single mom with no help financially from my ex or anyone else, and having to work constantly to keep a roof over our heads, that I wasn't a good mother, and that I wouldn't be able to raise a child with any kind of stability or order in his life. Add to this, my ex continued to be awful to the point that I had to get a restraining order. Pretty much everyone expected me to fail as a parent, and that my child will fail in life too. And Jamie was no exception. She was exceptionally smug in her belief that I was a terrible mother. But truth be told, I was a loving but very strict mom who did homework with my son every single day. I made a full breakfast, lunch, and dinner from scratch daily. We ate together every night. I was always home and available for my son, and always very hands-on. I even worked an extra job to hire a math tutor when it seemed like my son might be struggling with math. The tutor, who had his PhD in mathematics, told me that he thought my son was a genius, and I thought he was joking, but apparently he wasn't. Well, as it turns out, Jamie's boy John had gone totally off the rails, far away from his marmalade days. With no life skills, John had turned to substances, dropped out of school, and had become an awful addict. He had been in and out of rehab, living on the streets at times, and Jamie still seemed to be enabling him. After telling me all of this, she condescendingly put her hand on my arm, leaned in and said, "Sam too? Poor Sam, he was never very bright. I know he was terrible in school." And sure, while Sam was very, very bright, it was true. He had been awful in grade school through high school. In fact, he almost failed out of high school. I was in the office having meetings with the principal weekly, but as it turned out, Sam was just incredibly bored. I leaned away from Jamie, patted her shoulder, chuckled, and said, "Well, actually, Sam has 3 STEM degrees. We did his undergraduate and a double major in physics and astronomy, thinking he was going to be an astrophysicist. He graduated with what I think was maybe a 4.3 degree in both, but then changed his mind about his career path and got his advanced degree in nanophysics. He's currently working in a prestigious lab engineering semiconductors for rocketry, so I guess that makes him a rocket scientist. He has an amazing girlfriend who is a lawyer and who just made partner. They both make six figures and he bought a house. I'm so blessed that he turned out so well. Then I patted her on the arm and I said, well, it's been nice seeing you. I'm so sorry to hear about John. I hope he can get his life back on track. He was such a sweet kid. And yes, I really do mean it when I say I want him to get things back in order. But either way, a mom's petty revenge is through our kids' success and failures. And while this was years in the making, it honestly feels so incredibly satisfying. Dude, I hate Jamie in this story. I'll just say that first and foremost. I don't like her. I think she's a terrible person. And the fact that she tried to make the assumption, oh yeah, Sam must have turned out the same, right? Almost with this hoping and wishing of please be a mess up like John. Your mom's a mess up, so you've got to be a mess up too, right? But it's honestly so cool to see that Sam really excelled. He's a rocket scientist, his wife's a lawyer, they're making bank. That's honestly all you could ever ask for. So yes, it took a while, but you did get that revenge on Jamie in a way that truly was meaningful, because the way she treated you beforehand was completely uncalled for, and she deserved to be put in her place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My estranged boomer parents are blowing through my stated boundaries just to make me do a favor for a stranger at a job I had almost 15 years ago. And I'm now realizing that my parents will never be anything more than just a hot mess. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 38-year-old female, and just like many of us, I have had a challenging relationship with my parents my entire life. They married at 19, and from what I can tell, they've hated each other ever since then. I learned late in life that I was only conceived because my dad cheated on my mom with his cousin's wife, and she would only take him back if they had another baby. My father was never nice, and my mom was never especially maternal. I was the second child. My 9 years older than me brother was the golden child. Successful in school, he was a golfer, a tennis player, and a debate club star. Everything their social climbing Florida hearts really desired. Well, that was until he wrapped his car around a tree at 18. And I'll skip the grief details, but it really sucked. And my life generally sucked from then on. I was allowed no social life, no real friends. I played video games, I read, I walked my dog, and I rode my horse. And yes, to assuage their guilt, they did get me into horses and bought me 2 over the course of my childhood. Although it was a constant tool to manipulate me. Every day I was told about how much they gave up, how it ruined their life. If I didn't get the ribbons, I was failing. If I wanted something like to go on an overseas class trip in high school, I only could if I agreed that they could sell the horse. I learned later in life that this was a lie, and my grandparents had offered to fund it, and they never planned to let me go. They just wanted me to agree to sell the horse. Mostly though, my parents were just emotionally neglectful. My dad got physical occasionally, and I spent a week in the hospital alone at 14 after a spinal fusion surgery for scoliosis. They'd drop in for 10 minutes or so daily, and my dad never missed an opportunity to tell me I gave myself scoliosis grieving for my brother. He brought that up as recently as my 2018 graduate school graduation lunch. I hit the bricks at 18 with the first dude that came along, and it was awful in its own way, but not enough to go home. From then on, I was fully on my own. I tried to keep a relationship with them, but as I had committed the sins of leaving the Catholic Church, living in sin with a partner, and becoming a liberal, we really had little in common. They managed to keep just enough presence to continue to emotionally torture me. During COVID, I was working in a hospital in New York, having been sucked into their incident command team from another department because I could compartmentalize well. And every day, my parents would tell me about how they're out in Florida doing all the wrong things. My mom has COPD, congestive heart failure, and is a lifelong anorexic, which by the way is something that almost took her out. And my dad had early stage leukemia, and by that point, they had gone deep into their political party. The final straw was when I got a text out of the blue asking me to give them details of the complications I had with multiple scoliosis surgeries so that they could relay those details to a friend of a friend who has a 12-year-old daughter being recommended surgery to try and talk these strangers out of getting their child recommended medical care. Around this time, I had also hit my stride in my career, and suddenly they wanted financial help because of their lifetime of being lazy, as well as unwilling to work and living off of dead relatives' inheritance, unemployment, and the money they stole from me. And it's like, no, I don't think so. Well, I told them that I needed a break, and 3 months later, I reached out saying that I was ready to resume a relationship if we three could have an adult conversation about the way I'd like to be treated going forward. But as you can probably guess, they declined. Well, I haven't spoken to them or returned a text message since 2023. They're blocked on all socials and only not blocked on my phone because in an emergency situation, situation, I may want to be informed. Well, today, entirely out of the blue in the middle of my workday, I get a text from their number. No hello, no how are you, just the name of a stranger who is apparently trying to revive an education program that I used to run at a museum that I worked at 15 years ago, and a phone number and the direction to call her and explain a lesson plan from, again, 15 years ago. The thing is, too, I'd actually been thinking about trying to thaw relations, so to that end, I want to thank my mom and dad, because I realized that you will never be anything more than a hot mess, rude and cruel, and the unthinking boomers that you truly are. That's awful. I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. These people are clearly just users, and they literally just don't care about you, and I think I can confidently say that because it sounds like you know that as well. And that really sucks because it didn't have to be this way. They easily could have been normal, functioning parents who didn't treat you like garbage, and yet here they are, literally, once again, only contacting you when they need something. That's super inappropriate, and you don't deserve that in the slightest. My ex-girlfriend tried to force me out of my own home, even going as far as getting the cops involved. But when she started to forge documents to try and get me out of the house, I decided that enough was enough, and I got some revenge by literally leaving in the middle of the day. Here's how I did it. Okay, so I was in a very toxic living situation with a sort of ex-girlfriend slash roommate. We rented a house together, had separate bedrooms, and we lived our own lives. We had been there for 3 years, and the landlord collected rent from each of us separately instead of one monthly payment. By the end, we were both unemployed and struggling to make ends meet. I was behind 4 months on the rent, and she was behind 3 months, and the landlord was getting antsy about it. She was also an animal hoarder. During the time I lived with her, she had 3 dogs, half a dozen cats, 20 or so rats, several tanks of fishes, a rabbit, and a parrot, all of which, by the way, were completely neglected. She would get a new pet, dote on it for a few months, then get bored. Same as she did with her children who didn't live with her anymore, which is the same as she did with me. By this time, we fought constantly. I would have loved to move out, but I was trapped by needing to pay off the back rent before I could even start saving for rent and deposit on a new place. One day, after a particularly bad argument, she called the cops and told them that she had someone in her house who wouldn't leave. The cops eventually arrived, separated us, and started the interrogation. They said to me, well, she says you won't leave. But I explained that I live here and that I have for 3 years, and yes, I am on the lease. The cops looked at each other and then went to explain to her that she couldn't just tell her roommate to leave. Then they came back with a solution in the interim. Well, why don't you leave for a few hours until the situation cools down? But I said, you know what? I would prefer if she left. And so that's exactly what she did. Now, the only thing I was really worried about was that the cops would ask to see the lease. We had lost our copy a couple of years before and couldn't find it anywhere. 2 days later, she came home and presented me with a new lease that she had signed with the landlord, dated 3 years previous, that had her listed as the sole occupant. And it's like, okay, fine by me. I brought the new lease to a legal aid clinic for an opinion, and they thought it was, from a legal standpoint, hilarious. In particular, the part where the lease was dated a year before the document was created. I also went to social services who had a copy of the original lease, and I explained the situation, and they made a copy to give it back to me. And then the fight just went out of me. I was gathering all this evidence for what exactly? To stay there? An interesting court battle? So 2 weeks later, I borrowed a truck and I got out of there. I left in the middle of the day while she was away. I took my clothing and computers and left everything else behind. I couch surfed for the next 6 months while I got my stuff together. I never saw or spoke to her ever again. She got to keep the forged document, making her responsible for my share of the rent. So screw her and screw the landlord. But that's just ordinary revenge. The petty revenge comes in 2 parts. First, at the time, I had a serious Coca-Cola habit, at least 2 liters a day. The plastic bottles had a 5-cent refundable deposit, but it wasn't worth the trouble to bring them back to the store at that price. So I just started saving them. I didn't have any definitive plans, maybe build a boat or something like that, but I kept them in a weird little storage room in the basement, just this small little room with an out-facing door. Well, after 3 years, that room was getting seriously full. I would crack the door a bit, fling an empty bottle on the top of the pile, and slam the door shut before the whole mess started spilling out. Those bottles were among the items that I left behind when I moved out, and I would like to imagine the landlord's face when he finally opened that door and that mountain of useless plastic cascaded down around him. Now, the second bit of petty revenge had to do with the parrot. He was neglected just like all the other pets, spending all of his days in a little cage. She was planning to teach him to speak, but of course never got around to it. But he did like to imitate sounds though, so I took it upon myself to teach him to talk. During my last few weeks there, I'd speak to him anytime she was out of the room, and by the time I moved out, he could say exactly one thing, and that was to say hello wicked in French, which for me was a nice little farewell gift before I split and never talked to her ever again. Oh man, the second she forged documents and said, oh yeah, I'm the only person living here, that's the second I'd be like, alright, I'm getting out of here, I do not want to deal with this. Like seriously, this is not worth the effort. I don't blame you for leaving, because this ex-roommate and ex-girlfriend sounds like a nightmare and I would not want to deal with that. My stupid manager demands that I don't do anything with my job without emailing her first in writing and getting approval. So I decided to maliciously comply and play this stupid game with her, eventually leading to her getting overwhelmed and her stupid policy going back to the way it was. Here's how it went down. A few years back, I was working in a small office where I basically did a lot of administrative work, some customer service, some scheduling. I mean, you name it, I basically did it. I was kind of the unofficial catch-all employee. My manager loved being in control, but would never actually take responsibility when things went sideways. One day, one of our longtime clients called in and asked to reschedule a major service appointment. They were super reliable, always paid on time, and honestly, just easy to work with. So I looked at the schedule and I saw that with a bit of rearranging, we can make their new time work just fine. So I went ahead and I made the change. Done and dusted. Later that day, the manager stormed into my office like she had just caught me stealing company secrets. She asked if I rescheduled the said client without her approval. I affirmed and I told her I've done that in the past. She then said that from now on, I was not to make any schedule changes without written approval from her. Email me every time. I want it in writing. And those were her exact words. So I thought to myself, okay then, if that's what you want, then I could absolutely play that game. From that moment on, I emailed her every single change, even the smallest, most routine stuff. Appointment time shifts, when someone came back from lunch late, if a client called in to confirm something, if a tech was running 10 minutes behind, it didn't matter, I sent it all. And I waited for her written approval every single time. It didn't take long before these things started to pile up. Clients were calling back wondering why their appointments had not been confirmed. Techs were waiting in the parking lot because I couldn't officially send them to the next job without her go-ahead. One poor guy waited 45 minutes because she didn't check her email all morning. After about 2 weeks of this nonsense, she finally came back into my office completely exacerbated. She then asked me why I was blowing up her inbox with all of that. Well, I simply told her I was doing exactly what she asked. You said everything had to be in writing, so I'm making sure you have my approval before touching anything. Well, she just stood there blinking, realizing she had created her own nightmare. And let's just say that little policy didn't last much longer. Dude, I can't stand controlling managers, and my god, I've dealt with my fair share in the past. They're the worst, they don't know what they're doing, and chances are you're like their only escape from like losing their job. Because it sounds like in this situation, the original poster would be the obvious choice as manager. They know how to do everything, they can probably handle all the employees just fine, but they just don't have the title, and that sucks. Because they would probably be a fantastic manager, willing to step in and like do what they need to do, but instead you're stuck with this idiot who's like, oh, you can't do anything without my approval. I want it in writing or else it didn't happen. And that's super annoying. I would be so frustrated by that. So good for you for getting some revenge, because this lady absolutely deserved it. My idiotic boss demands that I clock in exactly on time, claiming that anything besides that is just me stealing company time. So I decided to maliciously comply, literally stifling all of the work in my store to a point that it really started to piss off customers. Here's what happened. A few years ago, I worked in a retail nightmare at a mid-sized department store. It was in university and doing the classic part-time grind, and for the most part, the job was tolerable. That is, until we got a new assistant manager who we will call Chad. Chad came in like a whirlwind of bad ideas and passive-aggressive memos. He was one of those guys who thought that being a manager meant catching people out rather than, managing people. And his biggest obsession was the clock-in system. At our store, we had a 7-minute grace window to clock in before being counted as late. I usually arrived about 10 minutes early, clocked in maybe 5 minutes before my shift, and used the time to settle in, say hi to coworkers, grab a water, etc. And honestly, nobody cared until Chad came around. One day, Chad pulled me aside and told me that I was stealing company time by clocking in before my shift started. But I pointed out that I wasn't taking breaks or leaving early, and that it was barely 5 minutes, but he just simply wouldn't budge. He told me in no uncertain terms that I must not clock in a single minute before my scheduled start time, or there would be disciplinary action. So it's like, fine, you want exact compliance? Then let's go. The next day, I arrived at my usual time, but instead of clocking in early, I sat in the break room until my phone hit 10 o'clock exactly, and then I clocked in. That meant I was just starting work as the store opened. Not on the floor, not ready to help customers, but instead just walking to my station. Well, this is when chaos ensues. Customers were waiting and no one was manning the register, and eventually Chad was fuming. After a couple of days of this, we walked through the door on time, clocking in exactly on the hour, and only then starting the routine task setups when Chad confronted me again. He said to me, I noticed that you're not ready at your station when your shift starts. So I said to him cheerfully, right, well, it's because I'm not allowed to clock in early, so that means I can't start start working earlier either. I'm just following your instructions after all. Well, when I said that, he had absolutely no rebuttal. Eventually, human resources got wind of this, thanks to another coworker who was also annoyed, and they told Chad to use discretion, and that clocking in 5 minutes early wasn't that big of a deal unless someone started to misuse the system. But either way, victory never tasted so petty because Chad was super annoying to deal with. Dude, managers like Chad just make life so miserable. Dude, just let me clock in so I can do my job. Why are you being so bent out of shape? I'm literally doing something that will only benefit my job in the long run. There's no problem with clocking in early just to make sure you're at your station ready to go. That's not the original poster stealing company time. That's them stepping up and saying, okay, I'm going to be ready and I'm going to do my job. So good for you for maliciously complying because this guy is a complete moron. And the fact that he was trying to catch you guys on this is just unbelievably frustrating. A group of entitled jerks make my life a living nightmare as they constantly complain about everything about our restaurant, despite the fact that we were doing the best we could understaffed. So I decided to get some revenge by throwing one of their wireless keys into the Baltimore harbor that they left behind. And sure, it's not my proudest moment, but honestly, it was incredibly satisfying. Here's how it went down. So 10 years ago, I worked at a now defunct restaurant in the Baltimore harbor. We were a fairly busy restaurant, especially for brunch, but unfortunately, most of our front of house staff was incredibly unreliable. The day was June 5th, which was a Sunday, and we expected to be incredibly busy because it was a holiday weekend. When I showed up, only 3 of our 7 servers, 1 of our 2 bartenders, and half the expected amount of back of house had come into shift. So as you can expect, I was swamped with tables. What was supposed to be just the patio section of 6 tables, I now had the patio and part of the inside, a combined 12 table section. Honestly, it was a nightmare, but I was somehow keeping up with everything. My guests could tell we were understaffed, and most of them were pretty understanding that I wasn't as attentive as I'd like to be, and I think that's because they saw me running around so much. Anyways, it's towards the end of the shift, and I get a table of 3 gentlemen who from the very start seemed like they were going to be a pretty needy table. I go over, I greet them, and I ask if they wanted to start with some drinks. They said they would need a minute, and maybe 3 minutes pass and I come back, and before I can even ask about drinks, they tell me that I took too long. They then ask for my name and tell me that I was rude that I didn't introduce myself by name. They then said that if I wanted better tips, I should start doing so right away. Now for context, for whatever reason, our owner didn't want us to introduce ourselves by name, only as their server, but I could tell them if they asked. Now I told them this policy, but I happily provided my name. I then asked if they wanted to put in some drinks and they obliged. I ring in the drinks and about 5 minutes later, they wave me down, and before the drinks are even delivered, they tell me they all decided they changed their minds and they wanted completely different drinks. So I had to run over to the one bartender for the entire restaurant and tell her not to make the drinks even though she was literally halfway done. And she was understandably pissed off. I put in the new drinks and then I go back to see if they're ready for appetizers and entrees. They say yes and then they order. 5 minutes later, a man from the table comes to talk to me while I'm at another table, and they again decide they changed their minds on the orders, saying that they wanted to change the appetizers. I then had to excuse myself from the other table, flag down the chef, and explain the situation. And if you remember, the back house is also extremely short-staffed, so he is also rightfully furious. So we now have a pissed-off server, a pissed-off bartender, and an angry chef. My service manager then calls for hands, and I bring over their appetizers. 5 minutes later, their entrees come out, and as I check to see if they have everything and if everything's okay, they tell me it's not. They were upset that the entrees came too close to the appetizers, so they want them comped and a round of free drinks for the hassle. So I just said that I would speak to my manager. I explained to my manager, and now she's angry too. She goes over to talk to the table, and when she comes back, she says to comp 1 appetizer but nothing else. And with that, the last piece of the puzzle has been collected, and everybody now hates this table. At this point, I've had enough, and I stay clear of this table as much as I could, other than to fill waters and pre-bus. Towards the end of service, one of the men asked me how long I'd been doing this. I told him, and he told me I should quit and find something else to do, because according to him, I was really bad at it. But you know what? I just laughed it off. I walked away, I printed their check, and then I dropped it off. I had my manager run the card, but I didn't want to go back. After they left, I went to pick up the check, and of course, they stiffed me. They left me $2 on a $130 bill. As I started clearing the rest of the table and the napkins, I saw that this guy left his Audi key fob under his napkin, so I quickly put it in my pocket to bring it to the host when I had time. A few hours later, the host got a call from the guy asking if we had found a key. The host said that nothing had turned up, but she would check with your server. Well, apparently when she said this, the guest made a comment about how I probably stole it because I looked like the type. As the host told me this, I kind of just lost it internally. I told her I had not seen it, and then a plan was devised. I then proceeded to walk to the back of the restaurant restaurant, straight out the back door, and I tossed the keys into the Baltimore Harbor. Now, this is not my proudest moment in life, but after all was said and done, I think it was well deserved because my God, this was absolutely satisfying. Dude, okay, I literally just can't stand people who act like this. They're so needy, they're so obnoxious, and they try to like insult everybody in the process. Like seriously, this group went down the list. They pissed off the server, the chef, literally the manager and the bartender, all in under an hour, mind you, and then tried to say to the original poster, oh, you need to quit your job and do something else. You're not very good at this. And it's like, dude, come on, what are you doing right now? This is so dumb. And the fact that they screwed you over on any kind of tip, and yes, a tip is absolutely necessary after dealing with that crap, like I don't blame you for a second for throwing their key into the harbor, because as far as I'm concerned, they deserve it, especially for the poor treatment they gave you and pretty much everybody inside of that restaurant. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I left my family 2 years ago and went full no contact after they treated me like garbage for so long, and now they've showed up back in my life and are practically begging me to go with them on a bonding trip. But right now, I honestly am not sure if I should go or not because these people have really hurt me in the past. Here's what's going on. So I escaped from my old life almost 2 years ago, and honestly, life has been so much better ever since then. Difficult, absolutely, but much better in other aspects. At the start, my family did everything they could to guilt trip me into staying. They were shaming me, they were using manipulation tactics, even following my every move. I then decided to go full no contact for a while, and after almost a full year, they reached out saying they didn't want to lose me and promised to respect my space as long as I at least visited occasionally. Well, I agreed and I visited a couple of times, but when I'm there, I don't even try to interact much anymore. I did try in the beginning, but all I got was indifference or coldness. That killed any motivation to put in much effort. The most shocking part is realizing just how hard my own family made the process of leaving. It's still really surreal at times. Like my own family, seriously, all because I just wanted freedom. And honestly, if you knew my backstory, then you would know that it has not been easy. And now one of my siblings says that I'm not putting in the effort and that it hurts our mom to see me come and go and know nothing about my life once I leave. And I'm just left wondering, do I need to explain where I go and what I do or how I live? Like I owe them some kind of update? And you know what? Why? It feels like they want things to go back to how they used to be, and that version of me is long gone. My parents, even at this stage, still blame me and say that this new dynamic is my fault. They've now invited me on a road trip to bond, and while part of me feels like maybe I should give it a shot, the other part is screaming caution. I've already been roped into going to an event that I didn't even want to attend, so boundaries are already being nudged, and I was promised my decisions would be respected. I told a friend about this, and she said that I'm being difficult, and now I just don't know. I mean, am I being difficult? Is it just in my head? Should I go on this trip or just stay away? I would love to hear from anyone who's had to rebuild themselves after cutting ties and trying to re-engage on their terms, because right now I seriously am not sure what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I do not think you should go on this trip at all. Someone in the comments pretty much spelled it out, but I think I'm going to articulate it because it's a really good point. And basically, I can't imagine being trapped in a car with these people on a road trip. If they really are as bad as you're saying, and trust me, I completely believe you, I'm not saying that they're not, then in my opinion, I don't think it's a good idea to go anywhere with these people, because they sound like a nightmare and I just would not want to be stuck with them in some situation where I can't escape. And I seriously just don't think this is the kind of energy that anyone should have to deal with. My entitled neighbor thinks that I'm available for her 24/7 to fix and repair whatever device or handheld thing she might be struggling with, making me incredibly frustrated and very annoyed that I live next to her in the first place. Here's what happened. Okay, so I moved into this apartment approximately 10 years ago, and I was extremely lucky to have an old retired couple living in the apartment in front of me on the same floor. And I say extremely lucky in quotation marks because this was a really annoying situation. When I was told this, I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just greet everyone from the building, including them, and that's it. But somehow this woman is some next level entitled person. She knocks on my door at least once a week ever since I moved in. I don't open the door anymore because whenever I did open the door before, she would just want me to fix her phone or laptop or her TV. She literally wanted me to be her personal handyman or something like that. She even told me, "You're young, you're supposed to know how to fix these things." But this one particular time really made me angry. I had a fever and I was sleeping on the couch, too weak to even go all the way to my bed. My child had a fever too, sleeping next to me, and it was like 9:30 p.m. and then suddenly, someone knocks on the door and I wake up. I realized it must have been her, so I just ignored it and I tried to fall back asleep. After a few seconds, however, she knocked again, but I still decided to ignore it. The third time though, she knocked even louder, and I was like, what in the world is this? It's probably something really serious, right? I thought to myself, they're both very old. They have diabetes, high blood pressure, etc. So probably something happened and she really needs help, right? So I proceeded to get up from the couch slowly. I wrapped myself in a blanket till I got to the door, and she even rang the doorbell. I was then 100% sure it had to be an emergency when she kept doing this, because she's never done this before. I then unlocked the door and I asked her what happened, and she's like, "I can't open Facebook, please fix my phone." I said to her, "I'm sorry, but I won't do that now. I have a fever and I was sleeping already." She then got mad at me, asking why I can't do it now. So I just repeated what I said and I said goodnight. While I was closing the door, she just yelled at me and said, "I'll be expecting you in the morning to fix my phone." So next time, even if she knocks 100 times on my door and keeps ringing the doorbell, I won't be opening the door for her, even if she actually has some kind of emergency, because trust me, this lady literally is not worth the time. Holy crap, there is no way I would want to put up with that. Seriously, that is crazy. Like, if I was in your shoes, I would probably have the police involved already. And it sounds like this was 10 years ago, so I don't know if like doorbell cameras were a big thing 10 years ago, but if they were available, I would be installing that like yesterday and record every instance of this crazy person doing this, because I would probably move. Like, there's no way I would ever be able to put up with that, especially if it happened for over a decade. Like, that's crazy. I could never deal with that. My friend's new girlfriend called me a pick-me girl and is now trying to turn my friends against me. And right now, I feel like my whole world is falling apart and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 36-year-old female and I have a group of 5 friends. We hang out a lot together. We play video games together, go to Friday Night Magic, we're watching movies together, doing D&D, and just generally being nerdy. One of the people in the friend group, who we will call Bruce, has recently gotten a new girlfriend, and we've tried to include her in our get-togethers. The girlfriend, I'll call her Silver, really seems to hate me, and I'm not sure what to do. I didn't notice at first, if I'm honest. She came along to our May the 4th Return of the 5th party sleepover, and one of my friends, who we will call Peter, helped her make a paladin to join in on a D&D one-shot when she said she wanted to learn. However, the other night when I was having a passionate debate with another friend who we will call Steve about the atrocity that was Hush 2 from the DC Comics, Silver absolutely lost it on me. She started yelling about how I was a pick-me and how I was mad that she was in the group and that I wanted to sleep with all the boys, but especially Peter. She yelled for like 5 minutes while I just sat there like a deer in the headlights because I didn't know what to say. She accused me of making my warlock sexy in D&D to make the boys want me, that I picked a pretty girl card for my deck in Magic, that I tried to dress sexy for the May the 4th party. I tried to tell her that I have no interest in sleeping with Bruce or any of my other guy friends, and she just burst into tears. Peter said that maybe I should go for now because she was upset, so that's what I did. Now on Discord, a bunch of them, namely Peter, Bruce, Steve, and someone I'll call Michael, have all said that I should apologize to her, with only my other friend, who we will call Clark, saying that I have nothing to apologize for. There's been a lot of talk about keeping the peace, but I'm not sure what I should apologize for. I didn't make a move on anyone. I haven't slept with or tried to sleep with any of my friends. I'm not sure what I should do or what I can do. I don't know what to apologize for, and I feel like my friends are siding with her. What should I do? You need to find better friends. This is insane. First of all, this Silver lady is a complete moron. She came in here, got super jealous of you, and then suddenly just said, "Oh, you're such a pick-me girl. You are such an awful person. You're an idiot. You're trying to sleep with everybody." But it's like, dude, projecting much? That's clearly your agenda. It sounds like the original poster just wants to make friends and that's it. So like, seriously, why should you have to leave the group or apologize to her, especially if you didn't do anything? Like, what's going on right now? If anyone's the pick-me girl in this story, it's the Silver lady. So no, you're not the jerk and you didn't do anything wrong. And if your friends are truly taking her side, then in my opinion, these are not good friends to begin with. My new employer demands that I work half of minimum wage for the first few months of my employment, resulting in me not even showing up for work and other people I was supposed to start working with quitting their jobs the same day in protest. Here's what happened. 7 years ago, I needed cash for a new graphics card. I was just a teenager back then, and I'd worked with my aunt before, but her place was about 40 minutes away, so I decided to look for something local. Then I found a job posting just a couple blocks from my house that would be a night shift clerk at a convenience store. It paid a few bucks above minimum wage, so I applied, I got a text back, and I went in for an interview. And the interview went well until the very end. The manager said she wanted to be cleared because a lot of people had quit over pay misunderstandings. Then she hit me with this. For the first month, I'd be paid half of minimum wage. After that, I'd get minimum wage for another 2 months, and then I'd finally get the rate from the job listing. Now, I was stunned and taken back, but I played it cool and I acted like I was totally fine with it. She was so happy, going on about how young people these days don't want to work, but I was apparently different. And I thought to myself, oh yeah, I was different all right. A few days later, they told me I got the job. I was then added to the group chat with all the other clerks and the manager. They made a schedule to cover the 24-hour shifts, and then the manager sent a message saying that my first 4 hours wouldn't be paid because apparently it was just training. And at this point, I wasn't even mad anymore. I was just amazed at how malpractice this whole thing was. So when the day came along, I just didn't show up. 1 minute before my shift, I left the group chat and I blocked everybody. About 20 minutes later, I got a call from what I assume was the manager's husband, asking if I was going to come in. I then told him something along the lines of, no, I'm not interested in working for half pay. Good luck though, you guys are gonna need it. Well, when I said that, she was livid, screaming on the phone, yelling about how people like me make her hate young people. I'm guessing someone had to cover my shift, unfortunately, but I guess that was the final straw, because later that day, I saw both the morning and graveyard shifts posted again on the same job site. And yeah, it was for the same business. So overall, I didn't even have to do anything big. I just dipped and didn't show up, and it made other people quit. But thankfully, I'm glad I exposed this manager who was refusing to pay fair and legal wages, because what she was doing was completely messed up. Yeah, I think I would go bananas if someone was like, oh yeah, the first 4 hours are unpaid, see you at work. It's like, no, it's not. It's absolutely not. And also, minimum wage is literally what it's called. It's the minimum legal wage that you can pay someone for work. You can't be like, oh, you're gonna get paid half that. And like, I'm pretty sure that's illegal, at least in the United States. Like, you can't pay someone less than that unless it's some weird extenuating circumstance. So good for you for not putting up with that crap, because trust me, there are much better jobs out there, and you do not need that kind of energy in your life. My entitled former employee decides that she wants a job no matter what, demanding that I fire one of my current workers, who, by the way, are doing fantastic, just so I can hire her back up again into my team. But what transpires after this conversation is honestly mind-blowing and completely surprising, as this lady shows once and for all why she is absolutely incredibly entitled. Here's what went down. Okay, so this situation went from 0 to 100 pretty quickly. For some backstory, I own a small business and our team are absolute rock stars. These are good people who could walk at any time and land another job in minutes. We survived the pandemic that must not be named on Reddit, with no layoffs, no reduction in pay except for me, and transitioned to a 100% work at home, which remains in place. The savings we enjoyed by not renewing our lease actually helped us a lot. We've worked together for a long time, with a least senior person being with us 7 years. Now, a friend of my wife, who we will call Stacy for the sake of the story, is a complainer. She's one of those people who are not happy unless they're not happy. But my ever-patient wife does her best to cheer her up. Last December, Stacy put in a vacation request for the week of Christmas, which by the way was a week before Christmas, when everybody else had already put in their request and was approved. Her request was denied, and she thought she would leverage the situation by quitting, only to then discover they processed her voluntary termination after she went home. It's now May and she's been out of work, and she, amongst other friends, were visiting last Sunday for one of my wife's wine and crafts nights among her friends. Making small talk in the kitchen, I asked her how the job search was going, and she said it was going poorly. Then she asked me for a job. Now, I didn't mind the ask. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. However, we're not hiring right now, and I told her as much. She then said to me, you know I'm a hard worker. Why don't you just fire someone and hire me? Now, it took me a second to process this before I explained that our staff has been together for almost a decade, and I simply can't do that. To which she replied by saying, you're the owner, you can do anything you want. And it's like, no, I'm a big fan of the book Leaders Eat Last, and a BS move like that would destroy the trust of my team. I then apologized and made a quick exit before the conversation could continue. Well, on Monday, I happened to be on the phone with another small business owner in town. For the sake of the story, we'll call him Bob, and Bob said he was down to a couple of people, and it was then that I remembered Stacy's request. I then told Bob what little I knew about her work life, and he said to have her call. So I told my wife, who passed it along to Stacy. Well, fast forward to today, and Bob calls me. He led off by saying, how well do you know Stacy? Now, I was a little nervous, not looking to vouch for her, but also not wanting to torpedo her opportunity. So I just gave the best non-answer that I could come up with. Well, Bob then burst into laughter, explaining that his interview with Stacy lasted less than 45 minutes because she kept trying to interview not for the job he had available, but for other positions that he already has filled. I then apologized and things are okay with Bob and I, but holy crap, this really did go south very quickly. Oh man, this is one of those situations where it's like, oh yeah, you're kind of glad this person's gone, and you're really glad they quit because they were clearly just problem after problem inside the office. So you know what, at least you tried to help her out, but seriously, it sounds like all the problems fall squarely on Stacy's shoulders, because she clearly wants the wrong kind of things and is unwilling to work hard to get what she wants. An entitled jerk is practically hitting me with their car as they're following me to my parking spot, as I guess they really wanted to take the spot before I left. But instead, I decided to give it to somebody somebody else, putting this weird person in their place. Here's how I did it. Okay, so today I was leaving a parking lot that was maybe about 99% full. As I walk, I sense a car following me from pretty close, obviously sensing that it could take my spot. And this is a car I noticed entering the area moments before. But here's the thing, this shiny red car was literally humming right behind me, almost touching my legs. I know I have what the driver wants, my parking spot. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but my God, you're way too close. So I make a turn towards my lane, and my car is maybe 2/3 down the aisle, and I see right in front of me an older lady in a small beat-up car, like maybe a Nissan or something like that, and she obviously was inside the parking area before this shiny red car was following me. So I gently point to the lady and I say, my spot is yours, but I'm not 100% certain that she saw me. Meanwhile, the shiny EV red car is still following me even closer, sensing a new opponent, I guess. Once inside my car, I gently pulled backwards with a curved path to block the shiny red car, and it quite literally had to back off for me to have enough space to leave my spot. I then motioned the older lady to take my spot, and she thanked me but said to me, what about him? And you know what? I just replied by saying, you were here first, ma'am. She then entered the space with a huge smile, and I gently pulled away looking in the mirror at the shiny red car behind me. So next time, if you want my parking spot, don't act so entitled and it might just be yours. Because as it is right now, that red car was definitely not going to take my spot. Okay, I can understand someone trying to get the parking spot and really snag it before anybody else, but to follow so closely that your bumper is brushing up against their legs, dude, what are you doing? That is dangerous. There's no excuse for that. I can't stand people who act like that, and honestly, I think you handled this really nicely. Because dude, I'm right there with you. If someone's gonna be weird like that, then congratulations, you're not getting my spot and I'm gonna give it to someone else. My friend was attacked by their boyfriend after he was convinced that she was cheating on him. So I decided to get even by quite literally canceling all of his classes for college and screwing up his schedule in such a way that made it nearly impossible for him to sign up for any other classes in a timely manner. Here's how it went down. So back in the before times when the internet was still a new thing with lots of potential, I was enrolled in my junior college. A little bit into the semester, I moved in with my girlfriend so we could both save on rent. I'll call my girlfriend Lucy for the purposes of this post. One night, Lucy says she invited a friend from one of her classes for a game night, and this sounded good to me. We invited a couple of other friends, and it was really a fun night. Surprisingly, it turned out that her friend, who we will call Sarah, was someone I knew from high school. We weren't close friends, but we knew each other and we got along fine. After that night, Sarah was invited over pretty frequently for dinner, game nights, or to watch a movie. She even brought her boyfriend over a couple of times, who we will call Jay, but he never quite fit in. He would be quiet or standoffish and wouldn't really engage much, and just seemed like he never really wanted to be there. It was clear no one really felt comfortable having him there, but we invited him to be polite to Sarah. Fortunately, he only came over 2 or 3 times and found an excuse to refuse every other time. A month or 2 after this all started, Sarah called my girlfriend crying and asked if she could come over. And of course, we said yes. Now, the story that was relayed was that Jay was getting very upset with Sarah for coming over to our place so frequently, and then he accused her of cheating on him. She never clarified if he thought that she was cheating with him, Lucy, or both, but any option was ridiculous and never happened. But he confronted her and got verbally aggressive with her, calling her all kinds of nasty names. At one point, she tried to walk past him to leave and he shoved her back. This caused her to trip over a coffee table, fall over, and get a huge bruise on her butt and lower back. Now, Sarah swore up and down that he had never physically touched her before, and she believed that it was just an accident, but I was pissed off. I wanted revenge. You don't mess with my friends and you don't attack women. I wanted to beat the crap out of him, but while I am a very big guy, I've never been in a fight and I'm not a violent person. But instead, a revenge plan was formed in my mind. At the time, I was working in the administration building of the school as a student employee. As part of my job, I could access anyone's student records. I could see their fees and I could see their schedule. The date was fast approaching that was the last day possible to drop or add classes without penalty or specific permission. So I looked Jay up in the system, I got a student ID number and the other information that I needed, and I put my plan into motion. On the last day to change schedules, I used the dedicated enrollment phones in the administration building, and I canceled all of his classes. Not only that, but I went through and added every class I could find that had a course fee. If you owed a debt at the school, you couldn't get copies of your transcripts or anything else. Now, something that I didn't mention was that Jay was a foreign student and couldn't stay in the country if he wasn't enrolled with a certain number of units. Now, I wish I could give more info about the fallout, but as I didn't want to get this traced back to me, I didn't tell anyone, nor did I pull up his records again for quite a while. I did get a little payoff though, because Sarah was really worried about seeing him again. For reference, she had broken up with him the night after he pushed her, and they had an English class together on Tuesdays. Well, she said that on Tuesday he was there, but there was also someone new standing in the class, and he was standing because there weren't enough seats. Now, the teacher, seeing that there were more people than there should be, decided to call roll and just take a wild guess as to who wasn't on it. That's right, it was Jay. Apparently, after I dropped all of his classes, someone on the waitlist got in. Jay tried to argue with the teacher, but as the teacher had the official class roster and Jay wasn't on it, there was nothing he could do about it. Sarah said that she never saw Jay in that class ever again. But after that, I don't know much more about what happened next. Lucy and I eventually broke up, so I didn't see Sarah very often after that. After a while, I did look up Jay's class schedule, and all of the classes with course fees were gone. But he didn't have any other classes on the books either. I wanted to assume that he was kicked out of the school, but I didn't try to confirm it one way or the other. Either way, Sarah didn't have a class with him, and while he probably deserved more, he was definitely inconvenienced and possibly kicked out of the school. Sometimes I worry if I was way too harsh, but then I remember that he absolutely deserved it, because at the end of the day, you are more than welcome to mess with me, but when it comes to my friends, you better believe there's gonna be backlash. Holy crap, this is some serious revenge. You literally screwed this guy's schedule up so much that he probably got kicked out of the school, especially if they're an international student. Like, holy crap, that's crazy, bro. So truly, good for you for being so dedicated to your friends, because this guy absolutely deserved to get punished. And while the way you went about doing it is something I would personally never do, I do love the effort and I love the fact that you definitely got even. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My job was a chaotic mess all the way up until I decided to sort it out, resulting in me throwing away about $1,000 worth of candy that literally was getting in the way and something that we never sold. And instead of getting fired, I ended up getting a raise, as they literally never knew that I threw away all this product. Here's how it went down. Okay, so back when I was in my early 20s, I worked at a grocery store that was owned by the chain Kroger. After working days for about 6 months, I was eventually moved to working the 11 to 7 or the 10 to 6 overnight shifts, and found that I really preferred them both for the clientele and for the different pace and not having to deal directly with the clueless general manager. One of the duties of the lone overnight checker was to restock all of the candy and snacks at the multiple checkout lanes. The candy was stored in the stairwell, giving the only access to the second floor office near the front of the store, which was an obvious fire hazard, by the way. Just picture this: 10 unopened cardboard boxes stacked along a not particularly wide stairwell, and you could imagine how messed up the whole thing was. Now, a lady who worked in the morning, who inventoried the candy remaining on the shelf, was a different person than the afternoon lady, whose job it was to occasionally, but almost never, inventory remaining candy in the stairwell. Then, daytime checkers were supposed to fill the lulls between customers by cleaning their check stations and by restocking candy by basically just grabbing whatever was handy at the bottom of the stairs, including opening up brand new packages, to take out the individual sales packages inside to top up their aisles displays, meaning that over time, those 10 large cardboard boxes of candy each had a bunch of partial boxes and loose pieces inside of just random candy with no organization. Because I worked as the overnight checker, I was constantly getting notes attached to my time card from the general manager, who only had his job because he was golf buddies with the district manager and had never worked in a grocery store before 3 years before that, reminding me to sort out the mess by stocking the candy. One of the banes of my existence was the lady in the morning who was ordering a bunch of candy of cherry nibs. Apparently, it was part of a discount deal to buy a bunch of them, yet we barely sold any of them. There were unopened and partial boxes of them in every one of the larger boxes that held candy, as well as the crazy assortment of other candy. Finally, after about a dozen notes attached to my time card over the course of a month, I decided to act. One night, I pulled all the boxes down off the stairs and told the night manager that I was going to sort it all out for good, and he said that was totally fine. He was actually a cool guy who let me get work done and ran a very relaxed yet efficient shift. I then sorted all of the candy into chocolate, gum, suckers, basically by category, and all into about 6 labeled boxes. I then put all the stuff back in their proper boxes, and then put all the rest of the candy in a cart along with the trash, as that was part of my job to take out from the registers at night. I then proceeded to throw away what I can only estimate was maybe $1,000 or more worth of candy, including about 90% of those stupid cherry nibs. I tossed them into the trash compactor in the back of the store with all of the trash on top of it so that the next person who would use it wouldn't notice a bunch of crushed candy and report me. Well, the next night when I clocked in, I was pleasantly surprised to find that instead of being fired, there was a note on my time card letting me know that I did a good job and that I would be getting a 25-cent an hour raise on my next paycheck, which really is hilarious considering the fact that they had no idea that I destroyed a lot of their product. Okay, I love the fact that the original poster did this, because seriously, it sounds like they were not managing this well. The person ordering the food was picking out stuff that they probably liked, but no other customer did. So good for you for getting it sorted out, because this sounds incredibly obnoxious obnoxious and I would hate to deal with that. My store maliciously complied with corporate after they didn't send us the proper items we needed so that we could sell Mother's Day products, resulting in one of the most awkward situations I've ever been in my life. Here's what went down. Okay, so years ago, I worked for a medium-sized retailer which sold all sorts of things, from confectionery to garden supplies, and the store had half an aisle near the front of the store dedicated to events, which were pretty much right in the customers' faces as they entered the store. Every few weeks, these event shelves would change over to a new department or be themed to any upcoming holidays or special days, such as Mother's Day or Halloween or stuff like that. Usually for these events, we would get the stock delivered the week before and spend that week taking out the old stock and replacing it with the new lines. If a new line was missing from the delivery, we would go and find a different line that would fit into that event from somewhere else in the store. One day in early April, we received an email from upper management. They said the following: "Do not replace missing event lines with any other lines." We emailed back to clarify because, of course, nearly every event delivery is missing at least one line. Do they want us to spread our other items out to fill the empty space or what? They said to us, just leave the space for any missing lines empty. Apparently, it will look like they have sold out. Barely a month later, while preparing for the Mother's Day event, we receive our regular delivery with no Mother's Day event lines. Not a single one. So we email upper management to let them know that we haven't received any of the event lines. They respond by saying that it will come in our next delivery and that we still should not fill any empty space. Well, needless to say, they did not arrive on the next delivery day either. We emailed them again informing them that we still had not received any event lines and heard nothing back. So we decided to do exactly what they asked. We cleared out the old event lines and left the entire event section completely empty for the entire 3-week period leading up until Mother's Day. After Mother's Day, during a conference call, they asked us why we had zero sales for the event lines and why our sales for the period had dropped significantly. But we just referred them back to the other previous emails where we told them that we never received the delivery and they said not to fill the missing lines. And this is when the most deliciously sweet awkward silence began. After the call, one more email was sent out to everybody. Please use your best judgment when filling missing lines for events. And honestly, that was so satisfying because their policies to begin with were incredibly stupid. Yeah, that last line is literally them admitting that they're stupid and they don't know what they're doing. They didn't want to admit it because obviously they don't want to look like they did anything wrong, but it's also pretty obvious that they're the ones at fault. So good for you for putting them in their place because these people are complete morons. An entitled Karen freaks out on me after I refused to open up her burgers that she ordered just to see which one was which, as she had 2 different bags and didn't want to check it herself, resulting in one of the stupidest blow-ups I've ever seen in my life, as well as me literally being done with this job. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at Burger King and today's Whopper Wednesday. And by the way, I'm typing this out while I'm on break. I'm handling drive-thru orders and things have been extremely busy today, and customers are coming and going without issue until a couple of minutes ago. This older woman, and who I'm assuming was her daughter or granddaughter, was in the drive-thru and had asked for her 2 combos in separate bags. And this is no issue. I separate the combos and I charge her order. After giving her change and holding the 2 bags in front of her, this woman then asked me which burger was which. I told her I didn't know, but that the cook had marked the wrappers for her to differentiate. She then tells me, very rudely by the way, that it's my responsibility to know which burgers were where, and to take the burgers out and open them to check. Now I'm dumbfounded with this request, and I tell her that I can't open the burgers because I have no gloves, and I had just handed her money. She then gets mad and tells me to just check the burgers already, but I repeated that I had no gloves and that she could check herself since my hands had just touched money. She then gets even more mad and demands a refund. So my manager comes in and the Karen berates me to her, saying how I didn't do what she had asked me to do, and how apparently I was the one with the attitude. But again, I had no gloves, and I had just touched money, and I refuse to touch food with no gloves, with what germs are on my hands. After getting her refund, my boss tells me next time to just do what the customer asked. And it's like, seriously, we were in the middle of a huge rush. I'm not going to the back where the gloves were at just to check this lady's order, because I have way more customers who actually want to be there for the right reasons, and I'm not going to hold everybody up all because of this stupid entitled Karen. Yeah, that kind of behavior is really disgusting. First of all, anyone who's ever dealt with money or worked in a bank knows how disgusting money is. I did work at a bank at one point in my life, and oh my gosh, it is really gross. Like, I wouldn't want to do anything else except for wash my hands at the end of the day. You're just handling and touching money, and money is so gross, dude. So in my opinion, I think the original poster did the right thing, especially when it comes to a customer's food, because who knows the kind of accusations this lady could have like thrown against you. And that, in my opinion, sounds like a bigger headache of her trying to be like, oh yeah, you poisoned my food, than just giving her a refund and getting her out the door. This next story comes from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. If you'd like to submit your own stories, check out the link in the description. Let's get started. Am I the jerk
for starting my mini bike in my driveway, as well as taking it for a spin after my Karen neighbor blew up on me and physically attacked me. Because right now I'm wondering if I made a mistake or if I'm in the right. Here's how it went down. Okay, to start things out, I've been fixing up this mini bike for a while. It's just a basic pit bike and it needed a lot of work. I'm talking carb cleaning, rewiring the kill switch, adjusting the brakes, the chain lube, the works. It's been my little weekend project and honestly, something I'm really proud of. But last Saturday, I finally had it ready to go. The weather was nice, my tools were laid out, and my music was playing low on my Bluetooth speaker. I wheeled the mini bike out in the driveway, made sure everything was tight, and I gave the pull start a few solid yanks. And just like that, it came to life like a beast. It was loud, sure, but it was running perfectly, and I was super pumped. I let it idle for a minute while I checked the throttle response, made some adjustments, and then let out a satisfied breath. Well, that is until this entitled Karen enters the story. From across the street, I hear that high-pitched, furious tone that just radiates entitlement. Turn that thing off right now. I turn around and there she is, storming across her lawn in sandals and rage. She's got that classic bob haircut, sunglasses on even though it's cloudy outside, and she's waving her phone around like she's already mid-call with the cops. I try to de-escalate by saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, it's just for a minute, I've just got to get it running." She then snaps at me and says, "This is a family neighborhood. You're disturbing my baby and my dog. You can't run that thing here." I then respond super calm, "I'm not riding it. I'm just making sure it runs. I'll be done soon." But apparently that wasn't enough. She stomps into my driveway, gets in my face, and then starts yelling at me. "You little punks think you can do whatever you want. I should call the police. This is illegal." And then out of nowhere, she shoves me in the chest, like full on hand to chest. I stumble back stunned because honestly, who does that? I then held up my hands and I said, "Back off, don't touch me." But she steps up like she's about to do it again. So I give her one solid push, just enough to put some distance between us. Not violent, but instead just defensive. She then loses it and screams, "You attacked me, you put your hands on me," and starts dialing her cell phone as if she's like reporting someone passing away. But then the hero moment steps in as my neighbor Mike across the street comes walking over. He says to the Karen, "Look, I saw the whole thing. He didn't touch you until you shoved him first, so you need to leave before this gets worse." Well, when he comes over, she looks like she just got caught stealing from a bake sale. Furious, red-faced, and flustered, she turns and storms off, still yelling about how she's calling the HOA, the police, and probably the FBI too. At this point, my adrenaline is pumping and I'm fired up. So what do? I look down to my idling mini bike, I throw my leg over it, twist the throttle, and I take off right off the driveway and around the block. I did a full loop at a casual pace. My helmet was on, my hoodie was flapping, and the engine was humming like a little chainsaw. I wasn't being reckless. I wasn't speeding or tearing up lawns. I was just sending a message. Neighbors looked out their windows and a few even smiled and waved. By the time I came back around, Karen was standing at the end of her driveway, arms crossed like she was expecting me to crash and beg for forgiveness. But you know what? I didn't say a word. I rolled right back into my driveway, I killed the engine, and I wheeled it over to the back of my 2002 Tahoe. I dropped the tailgate, I loaded it in, and I shut the door with the cleanest I win energy of my life. Later that day, her husband came over super apologetic. He said that she gets carried away sometimes and asked if we could just let it go, and I told him, look, as long as she keeps her hands to herself, we are good. So on that note, I really need to know, am I the jerk for starting my mini bike in my driveway and then riding it around the block after this Karen physically attacked me and tried to call the cops on me? Because at this point, I seriously have no regrets. Oh man, I can't believe this lady did that to you. First of all, it's really good that your neighbor across the street was watching over you, because you know for a fact that lady would have absolutely thrown you under the bus at the first opportunity. Because you know what? You had every right to defend yourself. This lady attacked you and pushed you. Like, who does that? That's not okay. You can't do that. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because what you did, in my opinion, was incredibly funny. And this was the type of karma that this entitled Karen absolutely deserved. An entitled boomer mocked the fact that I was lactose intolerant and intentionally put milk in my coffee that I ordered, resulting in one of the most uncomfortable nights of my life. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I was at a restaurant with my family tonight in South Florida for my mom's birthday dinner. I ordered a mocha with oat milk, but the boomer server in his 60s barely spoke English and muttered to himself, "Stupid vegan," in Spanish when I tried to make my order. My dad, a native Spanish speaker, corrected him in Spanish and said that I'm lactose intolerant and that I'll get sick if I drink milk. Well, he just scoffed but said that he would put the order in. Immediately after dinner, I started getting a stomachache. By the time I got home, I had what can only be described as explosive diarrhea. And as I write this, I'm still suffering from extreme stomach cramps. Also, the restaurant advertises itself as an American restaurant. It's not Cuban or anything like that, and I just wanted to point that out. My dad ended up calling the restaurant in Spanish
English as no one there spoke English, and he got the server on the phone. He told my dad that vegan commies like myself are ruining Miami, and went on a weird tangent about how he escaped the Cuban Revolution, which really makes the whole not knowing English thing worse, given that if he escaped the revolution, he's been in America for over 50 years. Also, I'm not even vegan. My body literally just can't digest dairy. We ended up getting a manager on call that spoke English, and he said that he would talk to the boomer server. And there's honestly so many layers of issues here that it is completely crazy. That boomer should be in a nursing home, not working, and this restaurant shouldn't be hiring people that can't communicate with their customer base. It's truly one of the weirdest situations I've ever been in, and I honestly don't think I'm ever going back anytime soon. Okay, as someone who is lactose intolerant, this is really messed up. Because yeah, it can happen this violently and this fast if you're not careful. So the fact that this idiot was like, oh, you're just one of those stupid commies, one of these vegan people, you're ruining Miami. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? I just can't drink milk. Like, why would you do that to me? Because what this guy did is literally just unacceptable, and you should not have had to deal with that. Am I the jerk for demanding that my unemployed roommate pay me back for the rent I paid after she bought a brand new MacBook? Because right now, I'm not sure if I'm the jerk, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my roommate and I have been living together for 2 years now. We split the rent 50-50, even though my room is slightly larger, but I cook more, so it evens out. She lost her job last month and asked if I could pay her share of the rent until she gets a new job. Well, I said yes since we are friends and times are really hard. Fast forward to yesterday, and I come home from work and I see her unpacking a brand new MacBook and some other clothing that she had bought. And for reference, this MacBook cost over $2,000. I asked her where she got the money to buy this when she didn't even have a job, and she became defensive and told me her parents sent her money for her birthday. I then informed her that if she can afford luxury products, she should repay me the rent that I paid immediately. She then claimed the money from her parents is a gift exclusively for those products and that I volunteered without any conditions. I reminded her that I am not rich either, and I missed a weekend getaway with my friends in order to pay her rent. She then began crying and told me that I'm being materialistic and that I just simply do not understand her problem. I then discovered this morning that I received half the rent money in an envelope with a message stating that she'd pay the other half when she can, but she won't speak to me much anymore. I don't feel like I'm being unfair in demanding my money when she's spending money on non-necessities, but maybe I did take it a little bit too far because it makes me wonder if I'm the jerk in this situation. No, I'd be pretty pissed off if I paid all the rent and then suddenly my roommate's like, oh, I got a brand new MacBook. Like, dude, no way. I'm sorry. That's not going to be okay with me. So no, you're not the jerk because I think I would feel the exact same way if I was in your shoes. An entitled Karen demands that I share all of my cookies that were meant for my friends with her daughter, who literally is walking up right now to take it from me. But instead of giving into this stupid Karen's demands, I decided to get some revenge by making this Karen look incredibly stupid in front of her kid, teaching her a lesson that I don't think she will ever forget anytime soon. Here's what happened. So today was my first time visiting a Crumble Cookies, and I bought 4 huge cookies to try and share with my friends. On my way home, I decided to enjoy the cookie that I had gotten for myself. I was sitting at one of the picnic tables where my condo is, and of course, my neighbor's friend shows up out of nowhere, who is, by the way, the entitled parent of this story. And I know they're entitled because, trust me, this is not the first time I've encountered her. So I'm looking at my phone and I'm eating my cookie, basically doing as many errands on my phone as I can, when suddenly I hear this entitled parent open her mouth. Look at that, Olivia, there's 3 giant cookies in there. And at this point, the entitled mom is pointing to my box of cookies. Why don't you go ahead and pick out one that you like? As we all know, it's very important to learn how to share with others. And this lady didn't share with you the last time we saw her. Maybe she's learned her lesson. Now, for a bit of backstory, the last time I encountered this woman, I had 2 candy canes because my blood sugar level was low, and I was on my way to a doctor's appointment because I am type 1 diabetic. I obviously did not give the child one of my candy canes because at the time, I needed it as a life-saving medicine. Anyways, I look up and this entitled mother is folding her arms and giving me the most smug look ever. Her kid then comes running up to grab a cookie out of my box, but I'm faster, and I immediately close the cookie box. And when I did this, the little girl seemed really shocked. The mom then lets out the most obnoxious grunt. Oh, come on, you don't need all those cookies. You didn't even share with her the last time you saw her. I'm trying to teach her manners and sharing. We share when we have more than what we need. Well, I look at the little girl, ignoring the mother, and I say to her, today I'm going to teach you another very important lesson. Can you please listen carefully? The cute little girl nods and I say to her, listen, you should never take food from a stranger. You should only take food from people you know, because for all I know, there could be something that you could be allergic to in these cookies, and that might make you very sick. And I don't want to give you something that might make you sick. I mean, you don't want that either, right? The little girl then nods her head and I smile at her. I also say, another thing I learned in life is that sometimes we can't always get what we want, so you might want one of my cookies, but for all you know, I have other people that I'm going to be sharing them with. And then they will be sad that they didn't get a cookie. We should always ask before taking things from someone else. I then tell her I'd be happy to share a piece of my candy with her if she asks me nicely the next time I see her, and if her mom can confirm that there's nothing in it that might make her have an allergic reaction. The little girl then smiles at me, says okay, and then thanks me. Well, after I did that, the look on the entitled mom's face was priceless. I think she probably would have slapped me upside the head, but I was using my wheelchair at the time because I had a flare-up, so thankfully that wouldn't have happened. And I don't know why, but it looks especially bad if you hit somebody using a wheelchair. Even more so if you do it in front of a large group of people, which there are plenty of people outside enjoying the nice weather today. I got enough satisfaction in not only teaching that kid lessons that she needs to learn, but then just by watching the entitled mother storm off and drag her daughter back into one of the other surrounding buildings. And yeah, I wasn't lying. I did get the cookies to share with my brother and friends. Perhaps if they had asked me nicely, I wouldn't have mind sharing the one giant cookie I had bought for myself. But both times I've encountered this entitled mom, she has just told her kid to take something from me without even asking. That poor kid is going to grow up on the wrong path if she thinks she can get away with that kind of stuff. However, if the kid does happen to ask me nicely the next time I see her, I will follow through on my promise. I usually do have low blood sugar candy to spare on me, and I'll give her one of my little bags of Skittles if she really asks for it. But I'm seriously so sick of crazy entitled parents, and I'm glad this woman doesn't live here. I don't want to have to encounter her more than every once in a while, because this lady is the opposite of Mary Poppins, as she is very unpleasant in practically every single way possible. Oh man, I can't imagine being in that scenario because I do not think I would handle that well. Seriously, this entitled Karen walked up and was like, "You're gonna share with my kid whether you like it or not." And it's like, dude, I need this candy to live, not because I'm like giving it out for free. This is not Halloween, are you kidding me right now? So personally, I think you handled this really well, much better than what I would have done, because this Karen was completely out of line. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk doesn't let us stay at his Airbnb house, even though we booked it weeks in advance. So I decided to get some petty revenge by not only getting a full refund and a free place to sleep, but I also got this guy banned from the app altogether. Here's what happened. So in around 2019, I had a friend coming to visit for St. Patrick's Day. Now, I'm Irish, but he's actually from Hong Kong. Given that I'm local, I said I would take care of booking accommodations, etc. And when I went on, of course, as usual, everything was like half a grand. I mean, welcome to Dublin. And obviously things were maxed out due to it being Paddy's weekend. But I found one spot in Blackrock, which isn't the city center, but it is only a few stops away from the Dublin area rapid transit. And on top of that, this place was going for $68 per night. So I booked it right then and there. Well, the following morning, I got a notification from Airbnb saying the host wanted to up the price to $288, and if I would accept that. I clicked no, and I figured, okay, well, he's already accepted our booking, and I don't have to say yes to this. I then waited a few weeks until the weekend in question, and then it came along. My friend landed in Dublin Airport, we made our way to Blackrock, got to the door, rang the doorbell, and then nothing. There was no car in the driveway, and nobody was home. We hung around for 40 minutes until the host arrived, and he literally wouldn't even look us in the eye. I said, "Hi, we've booked to stay here for this weekend," and he mumbled something about how no one was staying there, and that he was sorry, and then he went inside. Well, with that, I got straight onto Airbnb. They offered us our money back, and I said no. That's not good enough. Everywhere else is half a grand. What are we gonna do with $68? So they offered us double, and I still said no. We need a place to stay. So they booked us into a lovely house elsewhere that was closer to the city center. But you know what? That's not all. I made an official complaint about the host and how he screwed us over. And you know what? They actually booted him off the application. So for trying to fleece a couple of 20-something lads, he had to stop renting his place out entirely. Well, I'm a petty guy, so every couple of months I randomly think about this and I check to see if he's back online yet. And as of May of 2025, he still is not. So overall, I've cost him about 6 years of Airbnb rent and counting, and truly, this is something that you just love to see. Dude, I would be so pissed if I was in the original poster shoes. Imagine booking an Airbnb for the price that, you know, it was advertised for, only to then show up and be told that no, you don't actually have a reservation. Like, I would go bananas. There's no way I would put up with that. So I really love the fact that they got kicked off the app, because truly, if that's the way they're going to conduct their business, then they should not be on Airbnb in the first place. A water main burst in my school, resulting in my classroom filling up with water. But once I started dumping the water out of my room through the window, I not only got in trouble with my supervisor, but I also lost my job as a high school science teacher. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I'm a high school science teacher, and a few years back, a water main burst in my classroom. I saw the drain was clogged, so I sent the majority of the class to the library and grabbed some students I knew could handle themselves from coaching wrestling and football. I had them help carry water to the window in trash cans while I called building and grounds. A few minutes later, a maintenance guy came in and yelled at me, told everyone to leave, and that we should let the water fill the class until the pressure cleared the blockage in the drain. Now, the water pressure did not clear the blockage in the drain, and the whole hallway on both sides flooded, as did the hallway beneath it. Mold eventually grew, and we had to shut down over 40 classrooms for over a year. There wasn't enough classroom space, and we had to split the student body in half and have one group come in at 5 o'clock in the morning to 11, and the other come in at 11 to 5. The repair cost the district over $15 million. All spring sports were canceled for the year. The next year's fall sports were canceled too, and in a lot of ways, the district never recovered. I also got a load of crap from my supervisor, a VP, and the school principal in the immediate aftermath, and wasn't brought back the next year. I then got offered my old job back when they realized how much damage I was trying to prevent. But at this point, I was already moving on to greener pastures because, trust me, I do not need that kind of energy in my life. Okay, dude, whoever's like the ground supervisor for that school is a complete idiot. This guy was really like, oh no, we need to flood everything. The pressure's gonna fix the drain. But it's like, dude, there's literally water in my classroom. Why the heck would I keep that there? Just dump it out the window. Like, are you stupid? Like, that's so ridiculous, the fact that they would freak out on you about that. Not to mention your supervisors and the principal being like, yeah, you've got to go. We've got to fire you now. And then once they realized that you were not the problem, they try to be like, oh yeah, you can come back for your job. Like, if anyone pulled that kind of crap on me, I would never go back. Like, there's no way in the world. Because if they can fire you over something as stupid as this, then trust me, they can absolutely do it again. Am I the jerk for refusing to tip a street musician who did a supposed private performance for me and my date, despite the fact that I never asked for it or wanted it? Because right now, my date is making me feel really guilty and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so last weekend, I went on a 4-day trip to Madrid. On Friday, I met a guy in my hotel, let's call him Matt for the sake of the story, who asked me out for lunch on Saturday, and I said yes, and I was quite excited for it. Matt chose a cute little outdoor cafe and eatery, which really was so perfect. The vibes were there and everything was flowing nicely. Well, that was until a guy with a guitar showed up. I know I'm probably in the minority, but I don't like street performances. I'm on a date or in this historical place because I want to focus on the people I'm with and the setting I'm in. I don't mind if someone's doing their thing too, musically or otherwise, but I don't want to stop and watch them, and I certainly don't want them coming up to me. So anyways, this guy approached and he just started singing in English and improvising a tune about me and my date. He even asked Matt our names so he could work them into the song. Matt seemed to be enjoying the performance, but I was just waiting for it to end and kind of annoyed that we'd been interrupted. Well, after about 5 minutes, the guy finished and then asked for a tip. Now, Matt gave him one, but I politely declined, as honestly, I would have just paid for this not to happen in the first place. Well, the performer started getting upset with me, and then Matt started agreeing with him, saying that we had been given a really cool private experience, and it's only right to tip the guy for it. But you know what? I held my ground. But needless to say, the date was ruined, and we awkwardly rushed through the rest of it. And now, I'm wondering if I was in the wrong. Like, yes, this performer gave us his time and effort into making a custom song, and he wasn't bad. But also, I didn't want or ask for it. I wouldn't be doubting myself, except for Matt, who otherwise seems like a really reasonable guy, and was very much on the side of the street performer. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, dude, this 100% sounds like a scam. I'm gonna put on my tinfoil hat for a second because I seriously think something's going on here. What if, and just hear me out, what if Matt was on the side of the performer because they worked together on this kind of scam? Like, seriously, you meet this guy on a 4-day trip to Madrid, you agree to go on a date with this guy, and then you just so happen to end up right where this performer is? Like, come on, this seems like a massive setup altogether. Like, why else would Matt be like, no, you have to give the performer money? Like, come on. It's like, dude, I don't have to do anything. And you know what? Even if Matt isn't in on it and this isn't some kind of like weird conspiracy, a performer walking up to you while you're literally on a date and trying to drag you into their performance is like akin to that one guy on the side of the street who's trying to wash your window and be like, okay, you gotta pay me now. It's like, no, dude, go away. You're literally disturbing me. This is no longer a performance and it's slowly becoming like a police matter. So no, you're not the jerk for refusing to tip this stupid musician, because I'm right there with you. I don't like street performances either, especially if they're gonna be pushy and try to beg you for money in the way that this guy did. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories, because we would love to see what you have to say. Let's get started. Am I the jerk for snapping at my mom's friend after she demanded that I give her a ride home? Here's how it all happened. Okay, to start things out, I went to my parents for a celebration party today. These parties happen several times a year, and a group of family friends gather, not always at my parents' house, but mostly. This has been going on since I was a child, and a main group remains the same. A couple years back, a lady started coming to those parties, not always, but quite often. And I have to say, I do not like this lady. She's in her 70s, she's really annoying, inserting herself into every conversation, and yet manages to bring nothing into it. She keeps coming out with nonsense facts, etc., and it gets worse as she drinks. I just genuinely cannot stand her, but I am polite and I'm civil, and I try to ignore her for the sake of peace. Well, today my mom approached me asking if I could maybe give her a ride home, even though she lives half a mile from my parents' house, and this is because plans for her to stay overnight fell through, all due to out-of-town unexpected guests. And you know what? Initially, I said no. As night progressed and people kept getting drunker, I decided to leave. I had a full day, I was tired, and still had half an hour drive home. Plus, my dog was alone most of the day. Well, my mom then pulled me aside and started guilt-tripping me into taking the lady home, as apparently she mentioned earlier to my mom she will ask me for a ride. My mom was pleading, and I finally said, okay, well, let's see if she asks me. I gathered my things and I went to put them outside, and the lady was out smoking with a couple of people, and she says to me, "Oh, I didn't know that you would be leaving so soon. I'm going with you." I then said to her, "Excuse me, was that a question or a statement?" She then shrugs her shoulders and says, "It's a statement. It is only half a mile. I'm coming with you." So I responded by saying, "Well, it would be great if you could actually ask me, as I'm not a taxi service, nor do I work for you." This lady looked at me and said, "But I am a straightforward person." But at that point, I cut her off and I said, "That's not being straightforward. That is showing a lack of respect. You should ask someone for a favor. Don't tell them they are doing it for you." My mom then chimed in and the lady was laughing, which I took as a nervous laugh for being called out, and the last couple of sentences of the conversation got repeated. She then said to me, "I'm sorry if I offended you." And I said back, "Well, that would be better without the if." My mom then took her side, as she has a tendency to push me towards disrespect and being a doormat for people that she needs or wants around her. I also have to add that I didn't yell, but I was very firm. I have people in my life I've been friends with forever, and even my parents I ask if I can come over or get a ride if they can help, and I would never just tell them that they're going to be doing something for me. I am sure I will be getting the cold shoulder from my mom for weeks to come, but in this case, am I the jerk for snapping at this lady? Because right now, I'm honestly still pretty frustrated. Before we go any further, the original poster actually gave us an update to what happened in this story. Here's what they had to say. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who took the time to read and comment. I've been reading Reddit for a while, and I thought, why not ask for an opinion? To answer some questions in the comments, I have no idea how the lady got to the party. I also did not give her a ride in the end, as she never asked for one. Distance did not make a difference. Even if it was 20 miles or 10, I would have done it if only she had asked me and not told me that she was coming along. Even if she turned her statement into a joke and said something like, "Yeah, of course I'm asking," as people can get arrogant when they're drunk, I still would have done it. And by the way, this is not the first situation where this lady dumps her transportation problems literally on everybody else, or even makes some kind of rude or entitled comment. Many of you commented on my mom, and you were completely right. She does have emotional issues and narcissistic traits, and does sacrifice my well-being and my time just to accommodate her friends by using guilt-tripping and manipulation. And trust me, that's an entire story in and of itself, and it took me years to start saying no. For years, I tried talking, asking her for therapy, sending articles, but nothing works. So finally, I focused on myself, and it is a continuous work. However, I no longer see these situations as a favor to her, but rather another attempt to control. I do know she fueled the situation, but in the end, that is another story and another relationship. I've also seen comments of why I hang out with my parents' friends, and I guess I need to clarify because I never said they were only my parents' friends. These are family friends that I've known since childhood or for decades, and this lady is new to the group, and I am in no way close to her or just don't even really know her that well. So I can assure you, I have plenty of my own friends and parties. Now, for those of you saying that I was the jerk or rude, I don't disagree, but I have tried many other ways in these situations, and whether it's talking or keeping the peace, or even just saying no does not work with people like that, but instead sets up for bad treatment in the future. Quick and firm but kind of rude responses seems to have the best results, despite the age, the gender, or whatever else is another reason that might cause them to try and work me over. Now, when it comes to an update from a friend today, someone was coming to pick up one of the friends from the party and actually took this entitled lady back home, but this time she did ask for a ride. So in the end, I would like to think that maybe she got the point and hopefully will change her attitude in the future. Okay, I love this story so much because it feels like a masterclass in how to set boundaries. You're never in the wrong for being like, no, I'm not going to do that, and you're being rude. Because in my opinion, some people just need to be called out. Like seriously, some people just don't know where the line is, and they feel like they can push someone until they get what they want. And that's really messed up. I don't care who you are, like that is not okay. So good for the original poster for setting some clear boundaries and putting this entitled Karen in her place, because her crappy attitude is something that no one should ever have to deal with. Am I the jerk for not helping my girlfriend when she claimed she was being stalked by my exes? Because because right now I'm not sure what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my girlfriend have been in a relationship for about 4 months, but before that we were best friends for about 4 years. And when I say best friends, I mean it. We would be with each other 24/7, and she would tell me everything that happened to her. During those 4 years, I've been in many relationships, but for this story, only 2 are important. When I was about to turn 21, I was in a relationship with a girl that I will call Shannon for the sake of the story. Shannon and I dated for about a month and a half, but we realized that we have different goals in life, and she did not want to be with someone who has different goals, since she is religious and doesn't want to be in a relationship if it will not end in marriage. I respected her decision, and we broke up on what I thought was good terms. Then, about 2 months later, I got into another relationship with a different girl who I will call Mia. Mia and I dated for like a month, but we really rushed into it and things just didn't work out. We realized that we were just not that compatible, and maybe we could work as friends, but nothing else. We then just broke it off, and I didn't really date anyone until this point. When me and my girlfriend got into a relationship, things were great for 3.5 months, but she became really distant lately, and I was getting worried. This never happened before, so I asked her, okay, what's up? Are we okay? And she said that we're good, but then like 2 days later, she became distant again. Now, obviously something was going on, so I asked her again, and she admitted that she was being stalked. Well, I became really worried, and I asked her more about it. I was expecting to hear something like, oh, she was being followed home, but what she said really surprised me. She told me that Shannon and Mia were stalking her. I then asked her how, like what do they do? And she told me that they were liking my stories and looking at them, but they don't even follow me. And honestly, I did not think it was anything serious, because how is that stalking? Oh, they looked at your stories. I mean, how will you sleep at night? And that's when I told her I thought it was more serious than that. After I said that, she became really mad. She told me, how do you think it would feel if my exes were looking at your stories and if they always liked them? But seriously, first of all, why are you so mad about them looking at your story? It's not that deep. Okay, they look at your story. And what happens then? Absolutely nothing. And also, the block button is right there. Just hit that one button and then every single problem is finished. Secondly, if I was getting stalked like that by her exes, I really would not care. Oh no, 2 extra guys are looking at my story. Oh god, I'm being stalked. It just seems so internet addicted. Why is a big part of your day looking at who views your story and who likes them? It's just a shallow way of getting attention. I told her to just block them and then there would be no problems. But she does not want to do it because she doesn't want to have beef with random people. And it's like, what does that even mean? I'm so confused right now. Like, okay, you don't want to fight with random people over this, but you decide that it would be amazing if you got mad at your boyfriend about this and told him to roll over dead at the end of the argument. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. She has 2 extra people liking her stories and is making it sound like it's the end of the world. Also, the 2 girls wouldn't do anything to her in real life. One of the girls is religious and the other one is like 45 kilograms and she's maybe 150 centimeters tall. The reason that I think they are stalking her is because they think that me and my girlfriend got into a relationship way sooner, since we were always together and we just now made it public. So they think that I cheated on both of them with my current girlfriend, which isn't true at all. But seriously, how do I go explaining that to them? What does she even want me to do? Go DM my ex to stop looking at my girlfriend's profile, which is public by the way? Like, get a grip. It just seems so unnecessary. Just block her and get it over with. We haven't talked for about 3 days because of this, and I'm starting to worry if I might be the jerk in this situation, because at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, no, your girlfriend is not being stalked, and I don't think there's any problem here. Like, seriously, just block the people and get it over with. I'm 100% on the original poster side. Yeah, it seems like the exes are trying to like start some kind of drama and be like, oh yeah, we're gonna follow everything that your new girlfriend's doing. But like, seriously, just block them and then it's done. Like, what's the problem here? If you really feel like they're following you and you want me to do something about it, like if I was in the original poster shoes, I would happily message the exes and be like, look, leave my girlfriend alone. I never cheated on you. There was nothing like that. And I'm happy with my girlfriend, so leave her alone. But to sit there and be like, oh, I'm being stalked by your exes, what do I do? And then not like the answer that you give, in my opinion, is really short-sighted. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think the way your girlfriend is acting, in my opinion, is a little bit over the top. My entitled brother wants his cut of the inheritance all before my mom passes away, claiming that he deserves it right here and now, and that if he doesn't get it, then he wishes his mom was dead so that he could get it immediately. Here's what happened. Okay, so my grandfather died recently, leaving his 3 kids, namely my mom, my aunt, and my uncle, a huge stack of unorganized inheritances. And to give you an idea of how annoyingly tedious and stressful the whole thing was to deal with, a few of my aunts and uncles are already writing up their own wills, so their children, namely my cousins, don't have to fight over anything like how the 3 of them already are. He was loaded, but with how scattered around his assets were, it was taking a while to get everything in order, so what ended up happening is they're basically starting with whatever homes they can start with. My mother didn't get much at first, but 2 of my older brothers convinced her siblings to give her at least $700,000 in cash and 2 of his old rundown houses. The one we're currently living in and another one nearby, since there was more to be processed anyways, and my mom was losing money faster than she could make. My older brother, who we will call Archie for the sake of the story, is an unemployed, overconfident, narcissistic piece of garbage that nobody likes. He has a kid and his wife is pregnant. The second is his twin, who we will call Ronnie, and he grew up to be a more responsible version of Archie. He recently got married and works a really well-paying job as a professor like our grandfather. Now, I have another brother, but he isn't as important to this story as he's currently at college abroad. Archie was my grandfather's favorite grandson because he was the smartest growing up, but Archie himself only ever spent time with him as a way to get cash for whatever he does all day. When he realized he didn't leave a will, he scrambled to get his hands on anything he could, thus playing lawyer with my mom's siblings and getting her 2 properties and money. Now, this is where it gets blurry on my end, since I was never allowed to be a part of family meetings, but from what I know from context clues, Archie somehow convinced my mom to give him one of the houses, namely the one we weren't living in, since apparently, according to him, he was like his grandpa's son, so he deserves something. My mom's siblings were calling BS, and my aunt, who is a lawyer, didn't want him to get anything or involve him in the meetings at all, but he kept weaseling his way in. My mother, just tired from everything at this point, agreed to give him the property as long as he paid for the restoration himself, to which he agreed and everyone was happy. Well, Archie got the house but hired the same contractor my mom hired to work on her house. I have no idea why the contractor agreed to work on both jobs at the same time, despite the obvious lack of manpower, because what ended up happening was Archie would go to his house at 12 o'clock p.m. and watch the guys work, making sure they do their jobs, and then leave at 4 o'clock p.m., and only then would they come and work on my mom's house. With how things were going, the deadline kept drawing closer and closer, and the house was still a leaky, poorly ventilated mess. Ronnie, on the other hand, had a whole business plan with my mom's $700,000, but considering the plan was random stock trading, he had already lost a lot of money, so my mom didn't want to do it. He pushed for months, but each time my mom turned him down. Around 2 weeks later, it turns out that Archie was taking money out of the $700,000 in my mom's bank account, and this was the final straw. She took the house back from him and kicked him out, and thankfully my aunt wasn't done processing the property transfer documents yet, so it was easy for her to just revise the entire thing. Archie came back a few times to demand his rightful share back, and it got so bad to the point that I had to step in and stop the guy from literally physically attacking my mother. He never landed a hit, but my mom was still scared of him. Yesterday, both Ronnie and Archie came over as a final attempt of salvaging what they could after Archie's outbursts, and this is where they came to an agreement. Archie, Ronnie, my brother in college, and me are all getting $60,000. My mom thought it would be easier to just give us all money so no one gets jealous of anyone else, but if anyone wanted any more money, they would have to wait until she kicked the bucket. Archie was still mad about not getting anything, so he demanded that he get a cut of his inheritance right then and there. And at this point, Ronnie just wanted to go home, and I was trying to study for entrance exams, all through his yelling and fake crying to my mother. He also kept using his children as an excuse as to why he needed the money. He kept yelling about how he wished mom would drop dead right there so he'd get his money, and Ronnie just had to drag him out of the house before he could do any real damage. Well, my mom is now cutting Archie out of the will with no chance of him getting back in. I'm still going to be living with her for her safety, and she's looking into getting a security system to keep Archie out. Her bank account is also now secure, and she put me in charge of watching it while she gets her affairs in order, because the way my brothers acted is honestly incredibly disturbing. Yeah, this brother is completely out of line, dude. Like, seriously, he said, "Oh yeah, I wish you would drop dead right now so I can get my money." And like, at that point, I don't blame her for being like, "Yeah, you're definitely not going to be in this will. Sorry, but you have got to go." So good for her for making that decision, and hopefully he stays away from the family, because this does not sound like a good family member in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you want to submit your own story, because trust me, we would love to read what you have to say. Let's get started. I broke up with my boyfriend all because his family dynamic was incredibly suffocating. And at this point, I'm wondering if I'm the jerk for breaking things off in the way that I did, because right now I'm starting to have second thoughts. Here's how it all went down. Okay, for the sake of the story, my name will be Jenna, and my ex-boyfriend will be called Caden. I'm a 23-year-old female, and my ex-boyfriend is 30 years old. I'm also a longtime reader and a first-time poster. coaster. Kaden and I met last July and fell hard and fast for each other. Things moved quickly. After Christmas, I moved in with him kind of spontaneously because it just felt right at the time, but in hindsight, that was when things started to go wrong. About a week after the holidays, I found out that he had a long and complicated history with someone who I will call Rachel. They had briefly dated, transitioned into a friends with benefits situation for about a year, and then remained just friends for another 4 years. Kaden downplayed the situation to me, but I later discovered that while we were together, he was texting her frequently. We're talking multiple times a week and asking to hang out a few times a month. He never told her about me, and he lied to me once about seeing her, and that's when the trust started to break down. At the same time, I started getting a closer look at his family dynamic. At first, it seemed sweet. They were always texting, calling, and checking in, but soon it felt suffocating. I would glance over and he was constantly messaging or on the phone with a family member, and I mean every single day. For a bit of context, I left home at 16 due to an awful and unstable household, and I've been fully independent ever since then, working hard to support myself. I have complex PTSD and no contact with my family, so seeing someone so deeply enmeshed with his, to the point that his apartment, job, and car insurance were all set up through his family, was completely overwhelming. It felt like he would never stand a chance on his own, while I had been forced to do so for years. From January through March, we fought constantly about his family's involvement in our lives. I tried to express how the nonstop contact made me feel like I came second, that their opinions and emotions influenced him more than my own did. And often, after spending time with them, his tone would change like someone had rewritten our arguments for him. Well, in late March, we took a trip to Miami. It was supposed to be a break, but his family kept blowing up his phone. And trust me, I get it. We were in another country, but we were only in Florida, and he's a grown man. But even still, the trip only deepened the tension. When we returned, I asked for what I thought was a fair compromise, namely just a few months of space from his family to focus on us. Well, we wrote the message together and then he sent it. Within 4 hours, chaos absolutely erupted. His family accused me of taking him away and said that it was completely unfair. His mom and sister were incredibly emotional, and the next day he visited his mom, who said that she didn't support our relationship because, in her words, family comes before everything. Then, without telling me, he went to his sister's place, something we agreed he wouldn't do because it made me feel unsafe. When I confronted him, we had a huge argument. He asked me to call his mom to smooth things over, and I'd never even met her in person, and we'd only had a few FaceTime calls, if that. On the phone, she was cold, rude, and dismissive. She told me my traumatic past didn't matter, and that the only thing that counts is the future. She compared our past like it was some kind of contest, and called me crazy and bizarre. And Kaden was there the whole time and just said nothing. I left that night and I stayed with a friend and then in an Airbnb for a week. It was one of the darkest weeks of my life. Eventually, I moved back in temporarily until I could get into my new apartment. He kept promising things would change, that he'd respect the boundaries, but they didn't. The phone calls, the text messages, the emotional weight of being with someone who wouldn't put our relationship first. It was all still there. I cried, I threw up from the stress, and I felt like a shell of myself. 2 days ago, I told him I couldn't do it anymore. I told him I wasn't angry, but I was just exhausted. We tried everything, but he still wouldn't step back from his family, even though I wasn't asking him to cut them off. Just give us space to build something on our own. Well, he told me he couldn't give me that, and so I left. And now I'm wondering if I made a mistake by ending it all. Now, to give you an idea about the frequency of communication, let me clarify a few things. His family would reach out to him almost every single day, multiple text messages from his dad alone, and then about 3 to 4 other family members would text or call several times a day or week. They all live around 20 minutes away, so it was constant, especially when it came to him being available to talk or visit. So am I the jerk for ending this relationship in the way that I did? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated. Okay, I don't blame you for a second for stepping away from this relationship because it does not sound like you two are compatible. Like seriously, it sounds like you guys have totally different expectations about like family and stuff like that. And especially from both sides of this, it seems like either one changing anything is just gonna be seen as like a huge, massive attack against the other person. Because I honestly see both sides of this. I don't think it's unusual for family to call and check in on each other, but also I don't think it's a bad thing to be like, okay, let's have some distance and figure our lives out. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like either of you are willing to budge in any kind of way or find some kind of like middle ground. So in that regard, I don't think you're the jerk because your feelings are completely valid here. You deserve to be in a relationship that really makes sense to you, and in my opinion, this one just doesn't fit the bill. Am I the jerk for not acknowledging my half-sibling after my dad went through the messiest divorce I could possibly ever imagine? Here's what happened. So I come from a wealthy family, and both my parents worked their butts off to get where they are. Now my father on one hand is older than my mom by about 10 years, so his business is bigger. I've also known that my father has cheated on my mom several times over the course of of their marriage. My mom comes from a poor divorce family, so she didn't want to divorce because she knows how painful it is. Eventually, my father leaves her in 2019 for a woman about 23 years younger than him. Keep in mind that I know he's been having an affair with her since 2015. I also confronted him in 2015 about this as a 13-year-old kid, which he then responded by giving me a slap in the face and telling me that if I tell this to mom, I will break the family. Fast forward to the divorce, and my dad messed with my mom in every possible way, both financially and emotionally. But luckily by now, she has recovered and her business is starting to thrive again. He still disputes almost every single claim my mom makes regarding costs of university, etc., despite making a net profit of over $1 million last year. In various court cases, he describes us as spoiled brats, even though my sister and I both work every single weekend to save up and because we like our student jobs. This January, he and his now wife, the one from 2015, welcomed a baby of their own, but I explicitly told him that me and my sister will and can never accept that baby or his wife, especially after the messy divorce, the court cases, and me being mistreated, and a lot of other crap, which trust me is way too much to get into. It's his wife and his daughter, and they're not my stepmom or my half-sister. I told them that I wish them good health, but I only want a relationship with my dad and no one else. But now I'm hearing that they complain to all of our common friends that my sister and I are selfish, entitled, spoiled brats, and that we should fully accept his new family. They also still talk crap about my mom every day, and this is practically to my dad's entire side of the family, which is also the reason I cut ties with most of them as well. So I really need to know if I'm the jerk here because right now I don't know what to do. Dude, this is so messy. Like, your dad sucks. He sounds like one of those evil people who would just mess with your mom just for the sake of doing it, which all stems from a decision that he made. Like, he's the one that cheated, not the other way around. So the fact that he's demonizing you and your sister just because you want nothing to do with his new family, like, I don't blame you for a second. That would be way too painful to handle, especially after all the crap that he pulled during the divorce. So no, you're not the jerk, and honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would probably do the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for not going to my boyfriend's family's get-together after they refused to go to mine that I had planned for literally 4 months? Because right now, I'm feeling very petty, and I'm not sure if I'm making a mistake. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out, I'm not sure if I should be feeling this annoyed over the situation or not, but I am not happy. So last week, it was my boyfriend's birthday. We've been together for almost 7 years, and I love him dearly. 4 months ago, I had an idea to have a surprise weekend away in a place called Chester, which is for reference in the United Kingdom. Now, I invited everyone, my family, his family, and our friends too. The plan was that I'd have a secret day off work, pack up both of our clothing and what we would need for a couple nights away from home, as it is almost a 4-hour drive away, so it's not going to be that easy to come back if we need to, and just simply pick him up for work and then travel down to Chester. We would spend the night, just us, go for a nice dinner, maybe an evening activity, and then the next morning go to the zoo, where we would meet everyone there, and whoever wanted to stay the night, they could do that, and anyone who didn't, they could go home. It was no big deal. I spent weeks trying to organize hotels and transport for people who wanted to go, and for people on a budget. Anyways, it got to 2 days before we were all going, and all of his family said they couldn't go, bearing in mind most of them lived way closer than we did, and their reasons were that it was too far, or that they couldn't get the day off of work, or that traveling will be difficult, which honestly is something I completely understand. However, I gave 4 months notice, which I think is a reasonable amount of time to sort things out to be there. My family even offered to help with money, traveling, and other expenses if needed so they could be there. So I think it's absolutely shocking that not one of them showed, yet all of my family and our friends made it. Some of them even traveled 8 hours in the car to show up, spend the day with us, and then traveled home because they couldn't stay. So am I being unreasonable, or is this just a crappy thing to do? Even more shocking, the day of his birth, I received a text message saying that maybe we could all do something in a few weeks' time, you know, where it's cheaper and easier for people to get to. And believe it or not, they suggested something where they lived. And honestly, I'm raging right now. So just because I'm feeling a bit petty, I'm not gonna go to that. So truly, am I the jerk for not going to their trip after they refused to go to mine? Because right now, I'm still incredibly upset. No, I don't think you're being a jerk at all. Why would no one show up? Like, not a single person. You gave them like a 4 months notice to have some kind of like arrival or appearance. And I'm pretty sure it was well articulated that, yeah, guess what? I'm gonna be having a big event with both families. You really should figure things out and be there. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And as someone who comes from America, anytime anybody from the United Kingdom's like, oh, it's too far away, I can't do it, I just have to sit there and laugh because, my God, a few hours in the car is nothing. Like, dude, there's no excuse. So in my opinion, it all comes down to the fact they just didn't want to go. They didn't want to spend the time to go up there and visit with you or anybody else, and that really sucks. So So no, you are definitely not the jerk for not showing up to their thing, because they literally could not bother even showing up for what you had planned. Am I the jerk for wanting to leave my parents' house as soon as I turn 18 years old? Because right now with my current living situation, I feel completely miserable and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, as the eldest daughter, I want to start off by saying that I had to live for other people. Responsibilities have always been on me. Ever since my parents divorced, I've been forced to be the therapist for all of them, and I had to endure the constant blaming from both sides on the smallest things. If I expressed my feelings or even cried, I would get shamed for it, and then I'm expected to hold my mom and assure her that everything's okay, when I myself have never been comforted before. All my life, if I showed emotion, they would ignore me, or look at me like I'm disgusting, like I've done something wrong, when in reality, all I asked for was to be loved. Now, when my mom asks me why I'm cold and don't show emotions, I tell her that she doesn't care for me when I cry, or when I talk to her, but then suddenly I'm the one who mistreats everybody, and then she bursts out screaming like I did something wrong to her or something like that, and suddenly everything is about her. Sometimes she even ignores me when I tell her that I need to say something important to her, and instead she just keeps playing on her phone. My mom has always been this way, where she only loves or treats me like a person when she's happy or in the mood to be a mother. My dad also wasn't even there for me either. He mistreated my mom verbally and physically, and also molded us to only care about other people's opinions and follow his commands on everything. And you know what? He's never been there for me. After the divorce, he began his crazy behavior where he would be following us and mom just to spread bad rumors about my mom in the streets and in the neighborhoods. Every time we leave the house, we will find eyes following us everywhere, looking at us in the most disgusting way. Not only that, but he also kept breaking into the house even though they were divorced. He even broke the handle to my mom's bedroom and took money and gold. And if that's not bad enough, he threw the remote to the air conditioning at her face and hit her directly in the forehead. And for reference, my mom has diabetes, and that can cause her to go into a coma anytime. I was seriously devastated. And if that's not bad enough, I heard him talk to her about how if I didn't live with him, then I'm not his daughter anymore. My sisters always loved him, but even then, he literally threw her on the side like she's trash, and he just doesn't care about her. Ever since the divorce, the house has always been dirty because my mom was severely sick and could only leave to work and come back to sleep from severe exhaustion. So I had to clean the house and cook every day for my siblings, just to then get called names from them, and my mom shaming me if I was too tired to do anything. I've had to clean, study, be the therapist for the whole house, and be the perfect daughter just for my mom to tell me, "You're just like your dad. You look like him and you act like him." And that broke me. I realized nobody cared for me anymore. I've lost all my friends. I've lost my happiness. I get massive mood swings so bad that depression lasts for days nonstop. And these days, I'm supposed to push myself to the limit and take care of everyone who treats me badly, because according to them, it's my responsibility because I'm the oldest. But you know what? I'm tired. I'm really, really tired. And I have in the past had very dark thoughts. And I now feel like I'm stuck in a loop that just never ends. But it's like, why do I have to experience all of this? And why am I not like the other teenage girls that only have to worry about their nails or their boyfriends? I really just hate everything in my life right now. When I bring up that I'm leaving the house as soon as I get a job, my mom gets all sad and angry. She then says that I'll leave her in a nursing home. And it's like, what? All because I wanted my own room and not to be stuck in a small, suffocating room with my two siblings? I've already lost so many friends that I'm all alone in school, and now my immature dad is bombarding me every day and verbally mistreating me just to get my mom to get back with him. So honestly, with all things considered, would I be the jerk if I did move out of my parents' house as soon as I turned 18? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Oh man, first off, I want to say to the original poster, I am so sorry that you're having so many problems in your life right now, especially at such an early age. Like, you don't deserve this, man, because you deserve way better than what your parents are giving you. And just to try and like clear things out for you, no, you absolutely do not have to be the only person in the house cleaning and doing everything around there. It sounds like your mom and dad failed in almost every single way possible, and it's not fair for you because you literally don't deserve this. You shouldn't have to be the therapist of the entire house. You shouldn't have to be the only person cooking for your younger siblings, and you definitely should not have to be the only person cleaning. And it's so classic that your mom's trying to be like, oh, you're gonna put me in a nursing home when I'm old, aren't you? Because in the back of my head, I'm thinking like, yeah, if you keep acting like this, absolutely. In fact, you'll have to pay for it yourself. Like, dude, what are you doing? So no, if you did decide to move out at 18, you would not be the jerk. You really do deserve to have your own life where you can make your own decisions free from the scrutiny of everybody around you. And the fact that your mom wants you to stick around is just a big manipulation play. She wants you to stick around because you've taken on the role as the mother of the house. And if you're not there to do everything for her, then suddenly she's got to do her job. And the same goes for your dad. Like, they're both cut from the same cloth. cloth. Because in my opinion, you deserve the best in this world. And hopefully things get much better for you sooner than later. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. And also, please subscribe to Am I the Genius? I think you're gonna love what they're making over there. It's a great channel and you should definitely check it out. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.